Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Knights of Last Call. My name is Derek Melinda, welcoming you to another exciting episode, another live stream here in the fading hours of the fall. Chilly. I love it. I love the fall. I'm really looking forward to hopefully a very nice season. I've actually been kind of toying with the idea, since I am currently sans employment, of maybe doing a little bit of a mini backpacking trip, getting my equipment out of storage, dusting it off a little bit, and maybe hitting the trail. Not like, for 100 miles. Multiple days, but maybe just a, extended weekend, 1 or 2 overnights. There's some really nice trails in Pennsylvania, West Virginia nearby. So maybe do something like that. It's just, I think it'd be really nice. And it's tough to do in the summertime because it's so hot. Let me know if Twitch is twitching, because we should have Twitch twitching. Let me see here. Let me pop Twitch out and see if Twitch is twitching. We did try to get that back up. It is working. Okay, great, cool. So we got that set up. We got that set up, situated. We also got all of our full soundboard back. So we're good there as well. So welcome. First, let me say, if you're new here and you want to support the channel, but you don't want to give us any money, hey, you can do that for free. You can use your Amazon Prime sub. Yes, Amazon Prime. Just go over to twitch.tv/nightslastcall, and if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, as many people are, you get 1 free sub a month, and you can throw that our way. We'd appreciate it. So, how's everybody doing? It's going good. Kendall is hyped for this. Yeah, so this was I don't remember how we had this conversation, but it became a poll option that some people were polling for. It came in 2nd place or 3rd place a couple of times, which was basically to Daggersplain, which was to Daggersplain some Lord of the Rings stuff. Hey, what's up? Dagger, appropriately named, says, "What sound does this make?" Oh, that would be Kefka, the evil maniacal clown, arguably also the failed experimental first Magitech soldier, laughing maniacally, as one does. Thank you, Dagger. So anyways, I have discussed at length before in previous streams that one of my hobbies that I like to do is watch movies and sort of convert it into RPG mechanics. I think, by the way, that's not unique to me. I think a lot of people do that. And recently, and by that I mean the last couple of years, I think where this really came to a head was when people made this realization that they were watching the Dungeons and Dragons movie, right? The Honor Among Thieves episode or movie, not the bad old ones, but the new decent one. And they realized that what they were watching on screen really couldn't be explained that well with the D&D rule set. Not just because, oh, the druid can wild shape a bunch, but just because the nature of the game and the nature of the pacing and the nature of the way things work doesn't really work well with the D&D rule set. However, if you're familiar with, say, Powered by the Apocalypse or Dungeon World, it's very easy to watch a movie like Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves and basically be like, oh, I know that move. Oh, I know that move. Oh, that was a partial success. Oh, that was a failure at the hard move. Oh, that was a scene framing change. So the idea came up, hey, can we do that for Lord of the Rings, but use Daggerheart instead? So that's what we're going to try to do today. And I think it'll probably, and like anything, there is no value at all in what we are actually about to do, right? Like me assigning GM moves to different things in, a scene from Lord of the Rings doesn't really matter. what matters is the conversation that we're going to have. And what, I think is what's important is that we talk about why we might choose a certain move or how a certain move might apply here and sort of understand the sort of pacing and the nature of what we're trying to do. And if you watched Roll for Combat, what's up, RFC? If you watched Roll for Combat on Wednesday, Esper the Bard was on. It was actually a fun conversation. And we started talking, explaining to them, Esper, about, well, I started going a little bit deep into some of the RPG philosophy. And one of the core concepts or one of the core conceits, right, is this idea of some TTRPGs are less interested in simulating some sort of reality and then hoping that a good story emerges from that. But instead, the game mechanics themselves are tied to, basically creating a cool story. So we are also demoing. Now, I've only set it up and I haven't really gotten all the cool icons yet, but we're also demoing. So this is the Stream Deck Extra XL. And this is currently programmed with all of the Daggerheart GM moves. So let us test this real quick. So if I go over here and I hit that button, okay, cool. We'll hit this button. All right, great. Ask that question. Perfect. Okay, ask that one. Great. All right, making this okay. Wonderful. Okay, so what we're going to try to do here is, as we sort of watch, say, a Lord of the Rings scene or two, we'll be pausing a lot. Hopefully we won't get money copyright struck. That being said, if you want to support this, you can go ahead and drop some super chats or tips. They are always appreciated, of course. You can do a tip through our tip link, which is in the doobly-doo below, or you can type !tip. Copyright strikes are definitely coming in. Free use. I'm offering a commentary, and our tip goal is what should we do for Daggerheart ? And the reason I say that is because we could potentially have a conversation where, with you all, about what it is that we at Knights of Last Call can offer to the Daggerheart community. We were going to do an actual play. I'm surrounded by thousands of dollars of cameras and lights and unopened professional broadcasting headsets, because we were going to do a Daggerheart actual play, but one of our players had to back out. So we went from 3 players to 2 players. Now, I don't know if we should continue. Should we try to figure out a way to bring someone else in? I don't know who that person would be. Or should we change tack, and should we really focus on, it's not Bob, it's not about the number of PCs. That doesn't matter. You could run 5 PCs. It's not the number of PCs that's the problem. It's the number of players that's the problem. So I don't know. Maybe it's like a dunk and egg situation. I don't know. But Nutrimancer, this is in person. We're in our studio environment here, so it's in person. Anyways, or should we focus instead on trying to create house rules now, and stuff, publication, whatever. We talked about doing a duality digest. I didn't know if that was really worth the time, if there was enough people that were interested. I know Bob Worldbuilder did a video where he's like, nobody seems to really be supporting third-party Daggerheart stuff. So I don't know if, I don't know where I should, I don't know where I should put my efforts. So we can get into a really frank conversation about that if we hit our tip goal. All right. So, yeah. Now, I know some of you are going to be dropping off circa, in a couple hours to watch Critical Role, which will be great. So hopefully we'll get through a couple of these, and we'll start here, and we'll see if we can get through this in 2 hours.
Thaddeus tipped $25. May
cheers.
the copyright strike bot be blind tonight. Announce future badness is definitely Gandalf and Pippin talking, looking at the lands of Mordor with the storm brewing.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot of a lot of those elements throughout the game or throughout the show. So actually, you know what? That's a great point. Let's start. Well, that's the good news, Bob. The scene, which we're about to play, is a whopping like 9 minutes long. So we'll start here, and hopefully that'll take us less than 2 hours, right? Do gifted memberships count towards that goal? Officially, no, Dagger, but you know, I'm happy to tickle them into that if that's the case. But the bot itself does not do it, but I can do it manually. You know, I've done it before, especially sometimes people will super chat or tip and they'll say, I don't want to support that goal. I want to support the other goal. So I'll go and manually fix it. You know, we're cool like that. My question is not whether we can make Lord of the Rings fit into Daggerheart mechanics, but whether When Harry Met Sally can. Well, Platinus, that's a fair question, and we probably could. But I will say that, we got a membership coming in. We're going to get a bunch of strongs here. Oh, that is awesome. Thank you. That is fantastic.
I am strong. I am strong.
All right.
I am
Nope.
strong.
I almost had it right. Thought that was everyone. All right. That's fantastic. Thank you. Oh, hey, Dagger, we're here to celebrate a bunch of people becoming strong. So we love it. Yeah, look at that, Dr. Daggerheart, repping the emojis, dumpster fires and KOLC burning. Become a member. Use the dumpster fire. That's correct. That's the correct way to do it. So before we begin, let us remind ourselves real quick. Now, to be clear, this list of GM moves is not prescriptive. It is descriptive. Now, we use this term a lot, and I realize not everybody might understand what that means, so we'll talk about that real quick. Let me bring up the PDF viewer. Okay, so here are our Daggerheart core rules, okay? Now, a prescriptive list of rules or moves is basically saying these are the moves you can make. You can't make moves that aren't on this list, okay? And the moves that are on this list are the only moves you can make. So that is what a prescriptive list is. A descriptive list is basically saying these are suggestions, these are ideas. You might make moves that aren't necessarily on this list, and it doesn't matter if you do or not. Even the wording and the phrasing of this says when you make a GM move, you might try one of these. So by no stretch of the imagination should you ever feel like when you are, quote, when you're able to make a GM move in Daggerheart, that you should in some way be restricted to what appears here. And also, as we're going to see tonight as we go through this, there are going to be many instances where, there's no clear-cut move that they're making. Maybe it's signal an imminent off-screen threat, but it also could be revealing an unwelcome truth. And in fact, a lot of times these two things are kind of the same thing, right? So don't get so caught up and tied up into that. And be obsessed with that. So real quick, let us remind ourselves of the moves from Daggerheart. Now, these are listed on my board and in this list from going from the softest moves to the hardest moves. And all that really means is, how much are you sticking it to the players? How much are you putting their feet to the fire? A soft move tends to be, that doesn't really have any super lasting consequences. It tends to give the players a lot of choices and options and abilities to react. A hard move, like a hard truth, is usually permanent, irrevocable, and usually has some sort of, mechanical or significant narrative consequence that isn't a pending threat, but is instead a realized threat. It is happened. It's not happening. It's not about to happen. It's happened, right? And the Rubicon has been crossed. So as a GM, we have this ability to make soft moves all the way to hard moves. All right. Now, here's what we got. In Daggerheart, we have show how the world reacts. And this is basically the ability for the GM to describe what's going on. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You are always making GM moves. You're making GM moves even when you're not playing a PBTA or Daggerheart game, okay? GM moves are just a way for us to formalize and speak about why we're doing what we're doing. It's not telling us what we can do. It's putting us into a mindset of understanding why we're doing the things that we're doing. As I've said before, many, many, many times, you make moves technically in Daggerheart anytime you want, right? All right. Alternate Game Master, welcome to the adventure. Thank you for becoming a sponsor. I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Enjoy the emojis, enjoy the emotes, and enjoy the cool loyalty badge. Thank you so much. The Hard God only uses hard moves. I don't think it would be fictionally appropriate for him to do anything else. Again, we know that in Daggerheart we can make moves whenever. But one of the most common ways that you're going to make a move is when the players look to you to find out what happens. And that's where show how the world reacts works, right? And this is you basically just describing what happens because the players did something, right? Next, ask a question and build on the answers. So this is a very collaborative move, and it's where you use your quote-unquote GM move to ask the PC or the players or a player a question. And maybe this will take longer than maybe this will take us longer than 2 hours. You know what? We'll get through the Battle of Parthgailen for sure. Hopefully we'll get to another one. The reason I bring this up is because this move is an option at all times. Now, there's something to be said about tension, and there's something to be said about pacing. But in a combat situation, we are trained from years of D&D and D20 and Pathfinder to be like, our job here is to stick it to the players. Our goal here is to, well, in the old days, it was to provide them with a challenge and potentially kill them while still being fair. In the newer era, I'm not really quite sure what the goal is because the monsters still deal damage and the players still die. But nowadays, there's kind of this like belief system that we shouldn't be killing the players. Instead, we should be giving them a fair and balanced encounter, whatever the fuck that is. But the reason I bring this up is because sometimes just because you have a GM opportunity doesn't mean that you're having to try to beat the players. And sometimes what I view the game master making a move is it's my opportunity as a fellow player at the table to ask questions and find out the answers because I'm curious. I, Derek, want to know. And you can see an epic example of failure of this, and Bob is in chat maybe. We were playing Pathfinder 2, and we were doing our actual play. And the group was fighting giants. And while Pathfinder 2 doesn't have the formalized structure of GM moves like this does, but I asked them in this combat, basically, how did they feel, about killing these ogres and killing these giants? And basically kind of trying to understand a little bit more about how they felt about killing these trolls. And, Bob and Nick were just like, yeah, that's awesome. Kill them. There was an opportunity there for them to add some shade and some nuance to their characters. And they chose not to, which is fine. But this is a great opportunity for players to add and contribute to the game. All right. The third is make an NPC act in accordance with their motive. Notice, this is basically an NPC is doing what they should be doing because that's their motivation. Okay. 4, lean on the character's goals to drive them into action. This is basically the game saying, dangle a carrot in front of the players, something that that they want so that they will start to, have to get get busy living or get busy dying, to push them into adventure, to push them into action. If they're looking for something or someone, tell them where it is and tell them why it's going to be a pain in the ass to get to resolve it. All right. So those are my first column of moves, by the way. I consider those to be fairly soft moves, right? There's really no immediate threat. I mean, again, there's shades of gray on all of these. As we enter to the second tier of moves, these are what I call setup moves. These are moves that don't directly put the players into harm. And harm doesn't necessarily mean hit point damage. Harm could mean something that they are concerned about or worried about. For example, I mean, signal an imminent off-screen threat could be like, your character's having an affair and their wife comes home, right? It's not going to kill your PC, but it could cause them a whole hell of a lot of problems, depending on what's going on in your campaign. So again, this is where you are basically starting to set up the players with a immediate threat that is going to be coming soon. And if the players don't do anything, so this is the first tier for me that really starts to think about triggering golden opportunities. Now, again, we're all very smart people here, but for those of you who don't remember, one of the ways that a GM might make a move is when the players hand you a golden opportunity. And a golden opportunity is really where you say, hey, there's this threat that could come to pass, and the players don't respond to it, or they don't react to it, or they fail to deal with that imminent threat before it becomes a problem. You got to kind of nip it in the bud. If you nip it in the bud, great. They had an opportunity to deal with it before it really became a problem. But if they let it go, it will fester and it will become an opportunity for you as a GM to make a golden opportunity move. And those moves tend to be very hard with permanent, lasting, real consequences because you said, hey, here's this threat. And the player said, I have something else I need to worry about, or there's something else that's going on, or maybe they failed to address it properly. And that gives you carte blanche to sort of drive home that that threat wasn't just an idle threat. It was a real threat. So the next four, are really about setting the group up for potential, problems, golden opportunities, and hard moves. So the first is signal an imminent off-screen threat. And this one is very similar to the next one. So almost to the point where they're almost the same thing. But this is the classic, hey, there's the alarm bell is sounding. The reinforcements are on their way. This clearly puts the players on the clock. They have to do something now or there are going to be consequences. Right. So this is very clearly the, something is coming. The next, which again, you would be, you could be confused to these are kind of the same move, but reveal an unwelcome truth or unexpected danger. And to their credit, Daggerheart says that this is a versatile move. And I'm going to be honest with you. This is probably one of the most common moves that has been used since Vincent Baker created Apocalypse World. Announcing future badness is what it used to be called. And I sometimes still refer to it as announcing future badness, but this basically could apply anytime, anywhere. And it basically just means out of the frying pan into the fire. This is where whatever the players don't want to hear, that's what you tell them. Right. So, if, this is that classic trope where the players go, well, hey, the ship's a little bit banged up, but at least there weren't any Imperial entanglements. And then all of a sudden, boop, 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 right? Like, yep, there's Imperial entanglements. And the most important thing, if there is a distinction between the two of these, it's that this one is danger is coming, and this one is danger is here, right? And it's happening right now. So they're both giving the players time to react. If we were concerned about rounds or something like that, you could think of this as, hey, they're going to be here in 4 rounds. This is more like they're here now. So to contrast with my favorite, the pounding ogre, the big ogre, this one is Boom. The door shudders, and you hear the massive bellow of an ogre as he begins hammering into the door. The frame buckles, the hinges start to squeal and bend. The ogre is breaking in. That's signaling an imminent off-screen threat. He's not here yet. The players have maybe they have a narrative amount of time, or maybe you start, if you want to be really, really, really pedantic, you could start a 4 o'clock, or you could start a 2 o'clock or a 3 o'clock and say, hey, every time you guys make an action roll, I'm ticking the clock. So you guys have 4 actions to do something before the ogre manifests. And I basically make a golden opportunity to have the ogre barge in. To contrast that, this is the party's in the middle of a fight. Things are going really well. The goblins are starting to fall back. And then all of a sudden I go with a massive crack, like a peal of thunder. The door splinters and shatters, and standing in the dust and debris, a massive ogre, hulking and brooding, heaving with exhausted breath from rushing to the fight, stands, bellows, and begins charging you. That's the difference. One is it's coming. The other one is it's here. Okay. Now, let's also kind of, take a look here. Jake, that's a really good example. Yeah, you hear the distant horn of an orc and grading party versus you see them cresting the hill. Quite correct. Hey, previous super chat got overlooked in Smog's Rampage. Oh, I'm sorry, alternate GM. I'm so sorry. Good to see you live, and Dagger hype coverage. Always looking to lift my players' RPG XP. So love this discussion. Working through Nimble first look as I backed the campaign. Really impressed with Nimble, AGM. Really loved it. And I thought it was excellent. And yeah, really, really excited. Also, I've got a huge batch of mail I'm getting ready to drop out, including a shirt. So I'm going to be contacting you to figure out where exactly I need to send it to you, just to make sure that address and stuff is still good to go. So thank you so much for that. Sorry, I missed your message there earlier. I apologize. Thank you so much. Dagger hype is real. So anyways, if we look at the PDF here, we're talking about the reveal an unwelcome truth or an unexpected danger. A soft version of this move might manifest as moving a group of dangerous foes to within striking range of the PCs, or revealing a guard captain just when they think that they have beaten the guards. A harder version of this move might be an enemy pinning a PC against the wall, making a PC restrained until they make a roll to escape the adversary's grasp. So, yeah, that's an unwelcome truth. That's an unexpected danger. Notice here, there was no attack roll made. Okay? We were following the fiction. I had the ability to make a move, and I did. And maybe this is definitely a harder version of the move because it has, more immediate consequences. Now, it's not putting them into hit point loss. It's not putting them into stress loss, but it is putting them into a dangerous situation. And notice, there is no attack roll. There is no thing. I didn't have to activate an adversary. I didn't have to spotlight an adversary to do this, right? This isn't the adversary doing a move. It's the GM doing a move, okay? So our next one is pretty classic, forcing the group to split up. Anytime you separate them, they can't work together, you limit their ability to tag team. Could be because of an environment, could be because of a trap, could be because of the forces attacking them. So always a good one to do as well. And then lastly, I actually changed this on my list. So they go to here to mark stress as a consequence. I actually have that as the start of the next tier. The last move I have is actually make a move the characters don't see. This is basically where what PBTA would call think off screen 2. And if you know my Blades in the Dark advice, one of my Blades in the Dark advice, which I give often, is when the players roll and generate a consequence, there's a natural tendency to want to make the consequence tied directly to the actions that are happening on screen right now. This is natural, right? I failed to keep the ogre from breaking in. So the consequence should be something related to, me, the door, the ogre, right? That is a simulationist way of thinking. And I will freely admit, this is a type of move that can really, really turn people off to this style of game, because we're not trying to simulate anything. We're not trying to challenge the players to see if they are, a skilled enough miniature war gamer to beat our game. Instead, we are constructing a narrative, but we're doing it with the mechanics of a game, not just writing whatever we feel down, not just cheating and fudging. So the classic example of this is ticking a clock. Now, they talk about ticking a clock now notice it says the characters don't see. I, Derek, personally believe that just because the characters don't see it, I'm all for the players seeing it. Okay. I want my players to understand that the situation is escalating. All right. I like throwing down a clock, and maybe initially, possibly the clock isn't labeled. Maybe it just got a blank. They haven't figured out what it is. They just know something bad is coming. But I am also very aware. I am very okay with dramatic irony, where the audience, which in this case is the players, knows what's coming, but the heroes, the characters, the player characters don't. This is obviously very immersive breaking. It violates a lot of the sort of trad, we're giving the players too much information. We're making it too easy for them. They're going to metagame. They're going to cheat. Again, there's nothing to cheat here. The players can't even die. So we're trying to do this to create an experience for the players and for yourself as a game master. So for me, I put this as the sort of the last of what I will call the soft moves. I still think it's getting harder, but this is where you're basically saying, hey, look, there's a clock, but it's not outside the room knocking on the door. It's somewhere deeper. Glenn, there's a bomb in this room, and none of you know that there's a bomb in the room, right? This is, I might even put, the clock might be called I would write down if I was playing in person, I would write down on my index card, the hidden bomb explodes, and put it into the middle of the table, and it's a 4 o'clock, and I've just ticked the first tick, right? The players know there's a bomb. The audience knows there's a bomb, but the players don't know there's a bomb. So this is one of those situations where, hey, the danger is coming, but unlike the prior ones where the players and the characters are very much aware of what the danger is, this one is a little bit more tension filled, because technically the characters don't know exactly what's going on, even if the players do. All right. I'm gonna open up a window real quick, and then I want to do a quick cutaway to Nimble 2nd edition. Yes, that's right, Nimble 2nd edition. So obviously I'm a big fan of this. If you've ever played a Blade in the Dark game with me, you'll know that I am really a really big fan of this. And one of the reasons I'm a big fan of this, I'm excited. I love talking about GM moves. One of the reasons I'm a fan of this is because it's a great way for you as the game master to control the pacing and tension of your game and not give the players a free lunch. Look, they rolled a fear. They rolled a failure. They deserve their GM move. That's sticking it to them a little bit. But sometimes you're like, look, this scene is done. We don't need to keep going here. But you rolled a failure. And yeah, I could have more reinforcements show up. But you know what? I'm kind of over this scene. So what I'm going to do is, instead of continuing to escalate the current scene, I'm going to start setting up for the next one. So I love this ability for me as the GM to sort of punt, you know. It's like when you get the alarm on Windows, you need to update. Well, look, you're going to have to update eventually, but you could say, remind me later, right? You're not absolving yourself of it, but you are giving yourself a little bit of an extension, And so I'm a big fan of this for sure. So real quick, I did want to shout out. I did have the opportunity to spend a little bit more time with Nimble, 2nd edition today. I read through all the hero classes. They're all great. I love them. And I started to read through the GM guide. And I was very pleasantly surprised by some of the advice that the Game Master Guide gave as advice for their GM. And again, there's kind of like a sidebar here where they say, hey, you might be a new GM, but hey, look, maybe if you've never run a GM game before, maybe you should skip this. This is advanced advice. What I assume primarily is for people coming from 5th edition. All right. And yes, by the way, yes, the art continues to impress just throughout everything. This Justin Gerard guy is easily one of my favorite new artists. I liked him as soon as I saw the cover art for that Castles and Crusades. And apparently, he's being used here as well. So just a great artist. I love his style. So, one of the things they say here is, look, again, talking to 5e players. Now, we're over here talking about GM moves. We're over here talking about Fabula Ultima literal cutscenes, which is a mechanic in the book. It can be great fun to have the heroes unaware of the plots and machinations of the big bad evil guy. But you generally want to avoid your players feeling confused or lost in a campaign. A great way to make a complex story more sensible or keep moving forward despite a bad roll is to give the players information that the heroes don't have and can't act on. Letting the players in on what is happening, giving them information that their heroes are not privy to, can be a great way to increase the fun. And they talk about cutscenes and flashbacks and imminent danger and foreshadowing and splitting up perspectives and yada, yada, yada. I mean, I was like, all right, hey, look, Evan's trying to, there's a little bit of a poison pill here. He's trying to slip in, some more, awareness of some of the things here as well. And again, anybody who's played Blades in the Dark, Fabula Ultima, Powered by the Apocalypse, I mean, these are literally mechanics from many of these games. So I was really, really impressed, as if I couldn't be more impressed, with the game as it is, with just the inclusion of some of this stuff here. And I thought this was really, really great. So just this little page here, if you're coming from pure 5e, I think is really, really cool. And it's really cool to see that this was part of their game. Interestingly, so a great example, by the way, of this, and I apologize if you never saw this excellent movie. I think it was Rawlings. Yep. Okay. So Derek Rawlings, quoting The Fifth Element, Ruby Rod, played by Chris Tucker, says, no. Because if it was a bomb, the alarms would go off. Because all these hotels have bomb detectors, right? And then the alarms go off. Right? That's a classic move. Here's what's really great about The Fifth Element, if you've ever seen it, and even if you haven't. But speaking of working off scene, all right? Speaking of the advice that Evan is talking about here with cutscenes and flashbacks and foreshadowing and danger, talking about Daggerheart, about making the moves that the characters don't see. The main villain, which most people agree is really, really, really good, is Jean-Emmanuel Baptiste Zorg, played by the indoubtable Gary Oldman. Most people consider him to be a top-notch villain. In the movie, The Fifth Element, the main character, Bruce Willis, and Mia Jovovich, but certainly Bruce Willis, never meet or encounter the main villain. There's a moment right near the end of the movie, right near after this scene, where they basically cross each other like by a fraction of a second and they miss each other. and then the good guys steal the bad guy's ship and leave the bomb laden cruise ship. But they never meet each other. They never have dialogue. They never encounter one another. There's never a moment where they have any sort of interaction. And yet he is the main villain, and he is the one pushing the pedal the whole movie, right up into the last minute. So it's that's why I was saying did Zorg shoot Lilu? I don't think so. I think the what are they called? The Mandalorians? No, not called the Mandalorians. The shape-changing orc people. I think they're the ones who shoot Lilu. But you're right. It may have been Zorg. And that's why I said technically Lilu gets shot at, but Bruce Willis's characters does not. All right. You know what, Raj? I'm going to give myself credit for remembering that they are called the Mangalores. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, she was up in the ducks, right? Because she has to leap up there because he goes to get the stones, right? With his ZX-1, his fancy gun thing. By the way, I do love that movie if you can't tell. But my point is, he shoots at her, but, even though obviously she is the fifth element, the main character is Bruce Willis. But anyways, it's a really interesting, it's a really interesting treatise on this idea, on this concept. All right. So we've gone through the soft moves. Let's go, roll for combat. Are you even watching the show? Are you paying attention at all? So yeah, right. They don't even know about each other. Right. Correct. Tell me you tuned in without telling me you just tuned in. That's right. It's literally what we were talking about. All right. So let's get into the harder moves. Let's get into make a PC mark stress as a consequence for their action. This move is perfect for success with a fear when you're not sure what other consequences apply. The PC gets it done, but it's not easy. You know what? I don't recommend, is this lazy? Yes. But I'll be honest with you. It's a great way for me to turn failure into success. Okay. So what do I mean? The player, okay, rolls. Let me give you a great example. There's a swirling battlefield. You've got a lot of monsters, minions. And the player the guardian wants to, or let's pick a warrior, wants to rush across the battlefield, right, to start engaging the big ogre, of course. So they are moving to far distance. So you call for them to make an agility roll. All right. They roll failure with hope. You get to make a GM move because they rolled failure. Now, I could go spotlight an adversary and have the ogre go attack the warrior. And to be fair, that's probably what most people are doing. But I, again, recommend that you don't. Because that is lame as shit for our warrior. Really? They failed moving across the battlefield? No. They rolled with hope. I'm going to instead say, hey, if you want, you can mark a stress and you'll get there. And that's my move. That is the move that I am taking, that Derek is choosing to do. Because my role in this game isn't to fuck the players. It's not to win. It's not to provide them with a statistically balanced encounter which challenges them, but also doesn't actually ever TPK them because that would be bad. And the rules of the game are basically set up so that they win 99.9% of the time. And if you don't believe me, Mark Seifter said that literally, I think last week or 2 weeks ago when I was on Roll for Combat, we were talking about the balance. And he said, no, Derek, it's actually higher than that. Okay. I said, you win 90% of the fights. And Mark was like, no, if you won 90% of the fights, you'd have a 50-50 chance of making it to the next level. He's like, it's more like 99. So again, what are we even doing here? So my point is, don't view your role as that position. My role is like, of course I want to see the warrior engage the ogre. That would be a cool scene, man. I want to see Captain America go toe to toe with Thanos. Okay. So when Captain America bends down to pick up Mjolnir, and I go, make a might roll, and he biffs it and rolls failure, I'm not going to go, yeah, it's I guess it's too heavy for you. No, I'm going to say, you grip the mighty hammer, and there's a a moment of trepidation. If you want to pick it up, you're gonna have to mark a stress. This is kind of a do or die moment. And Captain America says, "Oh, I'm marking the stress," and I go, "Cool. That was my GM move. Spotlight back to you." And then the hammer obviously gets thrown and crashes into Thanos. So again, am I fudging? No, I'm making a move. The move that I, Derek, want to make. My goal in this game is to create an exciting story, to create cool, unexpected moments, to flow and to go and to use the dice as a way to take us into a really new, interesting dimension and world. Okay? And to do that while, first and foremost, being a fan of the characters. All right. Next, show the collateral damage. This is a great one, especially for our spellcasters. But, if the player, succeeds with fear on their fireball, talk about how the fireball crashes into the enemy and hits a bunch of people, and then talk about how, maybe they hit some allies, or maybe they, set the town that they're trying to defend on fire, right? Again, you're immediately putting things into danger and showing them this isn't just like, oh, this might happen. No. It happened. Your fireball caused damage. Now, of course, you could. Depends on how mean you want to be. You could be like, yes, a bunch of villagers die from your errant fireball. But yeah. All right. Clear a condition or temporary condition or effect. Now, I will admit here, and I'd love to hear from chat. There is a little bit of a rules ambiguity that actually does matter regarding this move, which is, although a GM can make a move at any time, which is true, when the GM starts making a move, they have the spotlight. The only rule is that until you give the spotlight back to the players, you cannot spotlight an adversary more than once. All right. If I decide, just because I want to, that, the orc attacks, spotlight the orc, he attacks. That's great. I could do that. I could do that because I want to. I could do that because of golden opportunity. I could do that for a lot of reasons. The only rule is that until the players get a turn, I can't spotlight that orc again unless they have relentless. There is ambiguous rules in this game about whether or not you have to spotlight that orc to have them remove an effect from them. Say they're vulnerable because they're being held down by a tangle of vines from the druid. There are rules that suggest you need to spotlight the orc and then use that orc's spotlight activation to cut away the vines. But this rule, this GM move, clearly indicates that this move is different from this move. Okay? So there's a little bit of ambiguity here, and I haven't looked super into it because I don't really care, but I could see a situation where this could be potentially problematic. Now, Raj says, pretty sure Spencer, the game designer, said on a Reddit post that clearing a temporary condition should count as spotlighting that enemy, rules as intended at least, which is good to know. And I could totally see that being a thing, but regardless, the point is, this lets you clear an effect on an adversary, but also more importantly, an environment. So this is where you're undoing something that the players did. And you need to be very careful with this, obviously, because, you could make them feel bad because you're not having to roll, and I'm okay with that. Shift the environment is our last semi-difficult rule, semi-hard rule, where basically, you're wrecking the environment. You're blowing stuff up. The bridge collapses. The building catches on fire. The rope you're swinging from breaks. All these things that are going to immediately not just put the players in danger, but fundamentally change the nature of the battlefield that we're fighting on. And our last 4 are our hardest moves, starting with Spotlight and Adversary. So this is the go-to move that I know a lot of people use. And guess what? It's actually one of the hardest moves in the game. So choosing a monster and making it, do its mechanical shindig is a pretty, tough thing. Capture someone or something, disarm them, break their weapon, take away the MacGuffin, all these things. Anything to advance the story, right? This move is an exciting fiction-forward way to advance the story, right? Use a PC's backstory against them. This is where we kind of channel a little bit of inner fate here. In Fate, we would call this a compel. In Fate, we would be giving them a fate point, and we would be saying, hey, your character is blank, 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 so this happens, right? And it's really just a way of saying and sort of grounding this in the idea that the reason this bad thing is happening is specifically because of you and the choices that your characters have made either in the past or as part of your character's backstory, right? And backstory doesn't even have to be the stuff that they did and wrote about in the beginning of the game. It could be like what happened the last adventure, right? And again, some of this stuff bleeds over into other moves, but if they pissed off the Thieves Guild and you decide that, you know what, agents from the Thieves Guild show up to take their revenge on you, this is a kind of an example of using a PC's backstory against them. And lastly, and the most dire and hard, is taking away an opportunity permanently. This isn't a situation where you say, hey, they've stolen the object, but you can get it back. This is an instance where you destroy something, you kill something, right? You basically remove something that the players needed or wanted, and you take it away forever. So this is, there is no coming back from this, right? This is the hardest of hard moves. And this can mean a lot of different things, but really think twice before you do this stuff, because it can feel, if you use it too often and you can use it too frequently, if you use it too frequently and use it too callously, it can feel unfair. All right. So those are our moves as we understand them today. All right. Raj says that they're going to change the text to be less ambiguous eventually. Good to know. Good to know. Kyle, yeah, or Kiki 87. Clearing effect spotlighting makes sense. So the GM couldn't say the orc is getting out of the vines and then it attacks you. So yes, I agree with that. All right, here we go. Time for the demonetization. Oh my God, it's Lord of the Rings time. All right. Now again, we're gonna try here. If you have thoughts in chat, this is what we're here for. Again, it's only a 9-minute scene, believe it or not, but it is
Frodo?
It has taken Boromir.
So obviously, we have just I'd like to think that Frodo has some sort of ring. There's maybe a clock or something that we were putting onto other players that it would periodically tempt them. Maybe it dealt stress damage to them. And when the players become vulnerable, right, the ring can seize control of them. And, so obviously that just happened to Boromir. And Frodo turned invisible, ran away. There was a whole scene where he looks into Sauron's mind and stuff like that. And he comes across Aragorn. So we're doing a little bit of a dramatic role-playing scene here.
Where is the ring?
Stay away!
Now, obviously, Aragorn's player knows that Frodo's player still has the ring, but he's pretending like he doesn't.
I swore to protect you.
Can you protect me from yourself?
And assuming these are both players, this is just role playing. We're building towards something though, and I will show you where I, as the GM, right, might want to, where I might put in my little bit of touch. And you guys can agree or disagree, but we'll find out from you guys. So this is me being Derek. Okay, so let's just rewind this really quick, right? Frodo's backing away. He doesn't know who he can trust now, right? Glenn Finney says, not all that glitters is gold. Not all those who wander are lost. The strong that is old does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. In the shadows, a light shall be woken. From the ashes, a fire shall spring. Renewed shall be the blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king. That is the riddle of Strider. Good call, Glenn Finney.
I swore to protect you.
Now, Frodo, Aragorn, players, it's taken Boromir. Frodo, where's the ring? No, get back. Frodo, I swore to protect you. And this is where I, Derek, am going to lean in and maybe spend a fear point. And I'm going to say, because it kind of doesn't make sense. It kind of doesn't. And I'm going to say, I'm going to spend a fear point because I want to make a move. And I want to be like, Frodo. And I'm going to be looking at the player because I'm going to be like, the burden upon you is so heavy. You can't do this. The ring is calling out for you to give it up. Do you think that you maybe offer it to Aragorn? Now, as a player, you're going if you're trying to win, you go, of course I don't. I turn invisible and I run away. I don't know if I can trust Aragorn. Why would I offer him the one ring? But I am trying to create a more cinematic moment. So I am going to I'm going to ask a question with my fear move. I'm going to spend a fear to interact here because I feel like I'm kind of being a dick. I'm kind of seizing control of the narrative a little bit. And I'm basically kind of saying, hey, look, I earned my fear and I'm kind of bribing you to offer this ring to Aragorn, right? So
Can you protect me from yourself? Would you destroy it?
right. So now Frodo's players bought in, he's like, would you destroy it? Right. Would you be tempted by this ring? Right. And so here I'm kind of in a way, I'm kind of using Aragorn's backstory against him. I'm going to tell Aragorn that he's, wants to be king. He wants all these things, Bob says, how much GP is the ring worth? So, we're kind of playing in this situation. We're sort of, in this opportunity, here against this. But ultimately, what I'm going to do, and by, using the PC's backstory against them, is I'm going to make Aragorn so I don't think it's a choice, Rawlings. For me, I think it's a move. Okay. And I want Aragorn to make maybe a reaction roll, right? Like a presence reaction roll or something like that. An instinct maybe, but maybe like presence, to see if he can be strong enough to resist the temptation of the ring. Right. Hell, maybe up until this point, because Frodo reveals the ring to Aragorn, I tell Aragorn, mark a stress, mark 2 stress. Maybe that's enough to put Aragorn into vulnerable state. Maybe it's enough to fill up Aragorn's clock of ring temptation, right? And I am basically at a point in a moment where I want to see if Aragorn can resist the call of the ring. And I'm going to ask him to make that presence roll. And, maybe he spends a hope point and taps into one of his experiences or something like that, right? To try to see if he can, overcome it. And he's describing what he wants and he's tying this into his backstory. And it's all really good stuff, but it's tied and rooted in the mechanics of the moment. This is, by the way, one of my favorite things here. The ring literally calling to Aragorn. It calls to him Aragorn, and then it says Elisar. Elisar, of course, means Elfstone, and it's basically his elven name that he was given when he was essentially in hiding. He was raised in Rivendell. Believe it or not, Elrond's kind of his stepdad, and but they called him Elisar to conceal his identity. But anyways, I'll look here. So obviously Aragorn makes the check, succeeds. And I like to think that maybe it's not even a reaction roll, you know. Maybe I tell Aragorn he's being tempted. And I said, you could take the ring if you want. And Aragorn says, no, I want to try to resist. And rather than calling it a reaction roll, maybe I do make it an action roll. Okay. Now, in this case and situation, I like to think that Aragorn critically succeeds. Okay. Because, you know, because he just destroys this thing. And by the way, this is one of those situations where if I was the GM, we'll get to this in a minute. He closes it around him, rocking the Ring of Bara here. Fun fact about Tolkien lore. You came for the GM move, stay for the Tolkien lore. Okay, ready? This scene right here is really interesting. So you got the One Ring, right? The One Ring, right? We're in the Third Age, okay? The One Ring was, you know, we're in year like 1300 of the Third Age. This thing was made. This thing was made way back in the Second Age of Middle Earth, right? And it's the One Ring. That ring is like 10,000 years older. And it's not magical. But believe it or not, that ring actually was created before there were even names to the ages of Middle Earth. It was actually created in the pre-time. It is almost one of the very small, very few handful of items in Middle Earth that actually came from and was created in Valinor. So that ring is actually like one of, if not the oldest things in Middle Earth. Okay, that's the Ring of Bara here. But it's not magical. It is. I mean, D&D, it would totally be magical, but technically in Tolkien's world, it is not. So Aragorn succeeds. He rolls a critical hit, and you know what? You know, the players are going to look to me what happens, and I got to be honest with you. If the player rolled a critical hit there, and I had been ticking them full of stress, because it's a critical hit, they get to clear a stress. I would totally be like, clear all your stress. Gain 2 hope. You know, I don't know, fill your hope track up. Fill it all the way up. Fill it all the way up. You just critically hit the temptation of the ring. Why am I doing this? Is that a move? No, not really. But it's a cool moment, and I want to celebrate it. And, you know, again, it's very easy because there's a really cool fight scene about to happen. But this moment that you're seeing here on screen is not to be taken lightly. Where Aragorn, you know, succeeds and turns it off. Derek Rawlings says 1 in 12 chance. Nice job, Aragorn. But that's the beauty, right, of playing a cinematic game, right? We get this opportunity. Beowulf says it's got to be at least a little magical or it wouldn't exist anymore. You know, you say that, but I mean, it's just, I guess, you know what? It was just made by the elves. That's the answer. The Galadriel temptation is also very cool up there as well, too. So.
I would have gone with you to the end. Into the very fires of Mordor.
So, tension resolved, right? Aragorn crit. He's not tempted by the ring. Frodo's safe. Everything's good. So this is where, as a GM, I signal an imminent off-screen threat.
I know.
They're right. They're having this little
Look off
peaceful
to the
moment,
others.
and I go, and no dice are being rolled. He rolled a critical hit, so I spend a fear point.
Especially
Definitely spend a fear
Sam.
point.
He will not understand.
And Aragorn, I drop the fear point. You look down, because Frodo's PC never looks at his own blade. Only other characters do. And you see the azure glow of Sting, The elven-made blade of Gondolin is glowing fiercely blue. Orcs are nearby.
Go, Frodo.
Again, dude never looks at his own sword. So I signal an imminent off-screen threat, and I'm basically, doing some GM bullshit, and I am saying, look, we had a great moment. You had a great heroic victory, but guess what? My job is to be a fan of the players, but also to fill their lives with danger and excitement and adventure and danger and stay true and claim to the fiction. So guess what? The Uruk-hai. And also, you know what? Derek is getting a little bored, if I'm being honest with you, right? We just had all this like character growth, and there was a lot of players talking to other players, and I'm starting to get really bored. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm falling asleep over here. I hope we're not doing this on actual play, because we'll have just lost, 80% of our viewers. So I go, it's time for a combat. All right. And I'm spending a fear point. I'm signaling an imminent off-screen threat. And here we go. So we go, okay, you need to get out of here. So we're setting the stakes of this fight. This fight's goal necessarily isn't to kill all the orcs or the Uruk-hai. It's to allow Frodo to escape. So that's the goal. The goal is to allow Frodo to escape, right? To get out of here, to go.
Run!
So here's the unwelcome truth. There are a shitload of Uruk-hai. Now, this is one of those weird situations where, even look at the way that they are mashed up. If I had to design this scene, I think there's like 2 or 3 hordes of Uruk-hai. You could do them as minions, and I wouldn't fault you for that if you wanted to really do this. But to me, this is the literal definition of a horde. Okay, so Aragorn's coming up, and I'm not spotlighting an enemy. I'm going to tell them how the world reacts, or arguably I'm going to tell them that the NPCs are acting with accordance with their motive. But I'm basically going to tell Aragorn there's a mass of orcs, and they are rushing forward. They are rushing forward towards you. What do you do? Right? Because this isn't a hard move yet. The orcs aren't attacking, right? Aragorn maybe he decides to use his bow. Maybe he falls back. Maybe he guards Frodo. Maybe he's going to stand and hold the line. He could do any of those things, all of those things. And because Frodo's trying to escape, he decides to, stand the line. So, guard the line. So, we got a cool shot there. So Aragorn says, I'm going to stay and fight. So to me, that triggers a golden opportunity, right? I've described how the orcs are coming in. Now, Aragorn hasn't rolled yet, but I'm attacking first. You know why? Because I gave Aragorn that option, right? I set up the move where I revealed the unwelcome truth. You're outnumbered 80-1 or some shit. It's like ridiculous. And I go, do you flee? Or, what are you doing here? And Aragorn goes, I'm going to raise my sword in a salute like a motherfucking boss. And I am going to engage them at point blank range. And I go, okay, well, the horde of Uruk-hai descend upon you, and they start hacking at you. So I am going to make an attack. So I'm spotlighting the Uruk-hai. I am going to make an attack roll, to which we can clearly see our Aragorn character misses. You could argue that maybe he did get hit, and he got hit for 1 damage, and he used some of his armor. This is where the mechanics, kind of bleed in and bleed out a little bit. Our Fellowship characters usually don't get hit too often, but regardless, the Orc Horde attacks Aragorn. So I'm spotlighting the Orc Horde, and they attack. They miss. And I don't want to spend any more fear. I could spend another fear point and have the big boss man go, but you know what? I'm kind of saving him in the back. He's like a bruiser, leader, solo, or something like that. I don't know. He's pretty cool. He's the only one with a name. It's Orc Horde, it's Uruk Horde, Uruk Horde, Uruk Horde, and Lurtz. But also, Aragorn stepped up. I want to be a fan of the characters. So the orcs attack, they miss, and I go, all right, Aragorn, the Orc Horde, the Uruk-hai, begins swarming around you, bringing down their massive choppers. Aragorn, what do you do? I was like, they're swinging at you. Aragorn, what do you do? He's like, I'm going to dodge to the left, slip underneath the blade. And I go, cool. He make the attack roll. I miss. Aragorn, what do you do next? And Aragorn goes, I follow up with a savage series of attacks. So again, Horde, the way Horde rules work, it might be 3 Uruks per hit point. Right. So this Orc Horde might have, maybe it has 8 hit points or something like that. So a single hit point could represent 3 or 4 or 5 Uruks. So when Aragorn sits there and just chops through, 6 of them, 7 of them in short order, that literally may have been a single attack roll against a Horde. And it's just you and the player going back and forth and describing it. And I'm like, oh yeah, you take out 8 of them. And it's like, what does that look like? He's like, oh, I spin to the left. I hack the one guy. I cut out the other guy's leg. Because we don't actually care if it's lethal or not. Aragorn isn't motivated. The characters aren't motivated to actually literally put all these guys to the sword per se. He's just interested in keeping Frodo safe. So he attacks, he hits, he does damage.
Mr. Frodo!
So as a side note, I don't know what Sam is in this thing. I think he's more of an NPC. So we're going to kind of skip him for a moment. So I want to go back to Aragorn really quick. So Aragorn's coming in, swings, hits. Now, Aragorn, in my opinion, in this scene, succeeded with fear. Okay? So I get to bank another fear, and I can make a GM move. Okay? Now, what GM move did I make? Now, you could argue I use my GM move to be like, Sam, you hear the sound of battle going on, but Sam doesn't really do anything in this scene. Sam doesn't really do anything until the end of, after this scene is concluded when, Frodo is actually leaving. But I think this is the only time we see Sam in this entire scene, so we can kind of skip that. I would argue, hey, listen, buddy, you have too many characters here. Anyways, in fact, for the purposes of this scene, Sam is an NPC. Merry and Pippin are NPCs. Okay, Frodo's the main character, but his character, he's leaving. He's got a new job, so he wants to leave the campaign. And so the GM's like, okay, cool. Or he's got to go. He's going out of town for a few months. So the GM's like, let me figure out a way to get you out of the campaign for a bit. And then Sam's character, who is an NPC, another character who's leaving, he rolls up Gollum and he plays with them, and they have an online play. But Merry and Pippin are NPCs in this scene as well. So Aragorn, all right, Glenn, I'll buy that. Okay, Sam is never an NPC, but his player had to answer a call from his mom, so he had to go lurker that night, right? We're like, Sam, you're there, but we understand that we're not really worried about you too much. Okay, so back to the fight. Aragorn attacks. He succeeds with fear. I bank my fear point. Now, he succeeded with fear, so I can make a GM move, in addition to banking the fear point, which I'll get to in a minute. What move do I choose to use? Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to, depending on how you want to phrase it, I am going to force the group to split up. Because when we come back to the scene, Aragorn has been forced from the ground level up onto the seeing stand, the seeing stone, okay? The hill of Amon-Hen, right? Where the seat of seeing is. That's what it's called, the seat of seeing. Remember, the purpose of this goal, or the purpose of this combat, is to defend Frodo. So what I'm actually telling Aragorn is, I'm like, okay, you succeed. You hack 1 orc, 2 orcs, 4 orcs are dead, 5 orcs are dead, but they are pulling in on you at all places. You bring your sword left and right. Another one falls, but you find yourself fighting defensively. You're falling back, having to give ground. They're forcing you up the stairs, up to the seat of seeing, away from Frodo. And guess what? That's what I chose to do with my move. Now, I could spend a fear point and also spotlight the orcs again and attack him again, and maybe I do. But I think the most important thing I'm doing here is forcing the group to split up. And I'm putting Aragorn, on the map. I'm moving his PC. Frodo, there is now nothing between the Uruk horde and Frodo, right? Frodo ran off screen, okay? And here comes the Uruks. Meanwhile, Aragorn, fictionally, right? This is all about fictional positioning. Aragorn is no longer in a position to defend Frodo because he's been forced up to the top of this ancient Gondorian stone tower, right? So, maybe I spend a fear point to attack them. I say, Aragorn, what do you do? He's like, I'm going to try to fight my way through them. Right? And you can see here, he's kicking, he's slashing, but he's not like, I go, I might even say, okay, you kill one, this is all one attack. This is all one attack. Right? Now, that attack, when the players are attacking something like a horde or minions, okay? As a player, this is player advice. Dude, we have been waiting our entire lives for this, okay? Ever since I was a kid, okay? Mini rant time. Ever since I was a kid, I watched movies, okay? I watched movies like Conan the Barbarian, and I watched movies like Willow, and I watched all these movies growing up, and all of my favorite characters, all right? Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, Mad Mardigan in Willow, Conan in Conan the Barbarian, all of them expert sword fighters. And you know what they did all the time when they were fighting, okay? They were kicking people. They would block somebody's, they would parry somebody's attack, or they would, block with their sword and then boom, punch somebody and hit them, They do that all the time. And when I started playing D&D in the 90s, right, in 1990, it never happened. Ever. All right. And it always bothered me because it was like, well, especially for those of you who don't know, in AD&D 2nd edition, a combat round was 1 minute long. So the game was very explicit about the fact that you obviously were making dozens of attacks potentially in that minute, but we represented the entirety of that combat minute with a single attack roll. But when we went to 3rd edition in 2000 and we got the 6-second combat round, it became very clear that 1 D20 roll was 1 swing of the sword, okay? And basically it just went away completely. And I think that it's a crime against humanity that you don't see people punching. And Albustine, you're completely right. If somebody wanted to be cool and describe how they were punching somebody, people would look at you like you're an idiot, because quite frankly, you would be. Okay. It is true. If you ever watch actual kendo or Olympic fencing, to be fair, Olympic fencing, it's like the fight is 5 rounds long, maybe 6 rounds long. And the first 5 rounds of it are them just doing this. And then there's 1 attack and it's over. So what I love about minions and hordes in games like Daggerheart is that when the player makes their attack roll and they do their damage with the sword, and we know that they're potentially taking out dozens of people, okay, whether it's minion overflow, depends on how you want to represent it, okay? If you want to do it as a horde, if you want to do it as a group of minions, okay, it doesn't matter how you're describing them. This is the moment, players, I'm telling you, lean into this, right? When you succeed, you have permission to kind of take the story where you want it to go. Mechanically, we know what happens. The horde lost 2 hit points. Okay? That's what happened mechanically. The horde lost 2 hit points. But you can describe that in whatever way you want. You slash through an orc, grab the sword that he had, slash the other orc through the neck. He falls down dead. You take the sword that you stole from the first orc that you used to slash the neck of the second one, throw it overhand. It hits the other orc in the head. He falls back as you spin, turn, and do a chop to the leg and punch another orc, taking him out. Cool. It doesn't matter. We're just trying to create cool moments. We're not trying to figure out. Hit points are an abstraction anyways. So when I talk about why I love playing PBTA games and Dungeon World games and, you know, why Daggerheart excites me, it's because that's what I want my fights to look like. Okay? Listen to what I'm describing and then think about the last time you played a game, I don't know, like Pathfinder 2 or something like that, right? Where it's just like, it's right here and power attack, map. Okay, well, that's a miss. So I guess I'll attack again. Map is -5. No, I power attack, so map is -10. Never mind. I'll just raise a shield. Like it lacks all of that. Now, I'm not mocking Pathfinder 2 because Pathfinder 2 obviously is a much more tactical game, deep game. There's a lot more decisions to be made, and I respect that. But I'm at a point in my life where I want people describing how awesome their characters are, you know? Tangent to our tangent. We were playing Fabula Ultima last week with Bob and his brothers. Bob and his brothers and some of his friends. And in the final fight, I was describing how the dark armored soul possessed brother of the villain, another villain, used this like dark energy wave attack, and it rippled outward across the field, and it was going to mess up a bunch of the party members, and it took out Bob's brother Danny, who was the sort of the white mage, the princess of the kingdom, here trying to save her kingdom from being destroyed. And Danny chose to sacrifice his character, and he had this great idea where basically as the dark wave was coming out, his character rushes forward, and they had previously described how they were using this dagger and filling it with the radiance of light magic and using it to blast people. And he basically described how he holds it up as a wave of darkness, and it overwhelmed him and killed him, but it transformed the dark energy. It was like he was like a boulder in the stream, in the flood of this dark energy wave. And as it passed over him, it did take his life, but it turned the dark energy into a healing wave. And in his character's sacrifice, he not only negated the damage of the dark energy mass mega attack, but actually turned it basically into a party heal. And it was just such a cool moment because I could see that moment happening in a movie, in a video game, in an anime, in a book. And that was really cool. And that was a cool moment for me. And that's why I play role-playing games these days. So, props to Danny, Bob's brother, for creating what I thought was the coolest moment of the entire night, for sure. All right, so, Fabula Ultima, Glenn, it was Fabula Ultima. So, Aragorn is being pressed back. Now, I described to Aragorn the orcs are pressing in, what do you do? And he goes, I'm going to attack again, all right? And I go, all right, cool. He's bringing it. He's attacking the orcs. They're charging up the stairs, forcing you further back. He takes out a bunch of them, right? And he succeeds. Okay. Maybe he succeeds with fear again. And why, you might say, why does he succeed with fear? Because I'm going to make a GM move. I might bank the fear. But this is another example. And the only reason I'm bringing this is because I really want to drive home the point of the cinematics. There's a lot of ways. You can skin this cat a million ways. But what you're about to see here is an example of the way I think about Daggerheart and the way that I think about using this game system to tell stories. Okay? Jacob Online is very correct because almost every action in a good movie or book is a success with fear. Jacob Online, you are 100% correct. And by the way, success with fear in PBTA terms is partial success. It is the 7, 8, or 9 result. It is what PBTA is designed mathematically to generate the most often. Blades in the Dark is designed most often to generate 4s and 5s. The succeed, but with a new problem. To succeed, but with a complication. or with a cost. Because when you succeed and there's nothing else, that usually means the scene is kind of resolved and the tension is deflating. And we don't want our tension deflating. This is one of the brilliant things that Daggerheart does, because in a PBTA game, if the players go on a tear and they roll a bunch of 10 pluses, they will be succeeding with no cost and succeeding with no cost and succeeding with no cost. And yes, as a GM, I can make soft moves and tell them what's happening, but I do not have the ability to lock and load a hard move and shoot it. Okay, because if I did that in a PBTA game, I would be cheating. Be very clear about that. But Daggerheart gives us the fear meta currency, okay? And I can use that to legally cheat. So the reason I want to bring this up is because Aragorn just succeeded with fear again. And thus I get a fear point and I'm entitled to take the spotlight and make a GM move. Now, he succeeded with fear, so this shouldn't be like a super hard move. I could, you know, it's on the fence. So what move do I decide to do? Oh, I'm not on the thing. Here we go. So Aragorn kills a couple more from the horde. I made an NPC act in accordance with their motive. That is what I, as the game master, as the director, that is what I chose to do at that moment. You're right. I could have just said, spotlight the orcs, they attack you again. Spotlight the big dude, because he's really broken and he has a sick attack and he has a really cool combo. And I'm really looking forward to challenging you tactically in this game where nobody can die. But instead, okay, what I chose to do is to make an NPC act in accordance with their motives. Lurtz was told by Sauron, the White, that they are here for the halfling. Now, to be clear, Aragorn, they don't know for sure. Okay, Derek, you're 100% right. I'm about to get to this in a minute. So I'm going to use my move, okay, to basically have the orc leader yell out, you know, hey, stop killing that guy, go after Frodo. This does a couple of things. Number one, it lets the players know, hey, these aren't just random orcs. We're not just running away because they're scary. These guys aren't here to kill us. They're here for the hobbits, okay? I'm letting them know that, in a weird way, I'm sort of also kind of, what am I doing here? Yeah, I'm kind of making an unseen move. I'm kind of showing them that these orcs were sent to apprehend the hobbits. That means that someone knows that we know the treachery of Sauron. We understand what's going on. And so now Aragorn and the players understand that there's more here at stake than just the orcs are attacking us. No. They're not here. But additionally, what I might do here is spend a fear point to use Lurtz's, he's a leader character, right? He probably has some sort of activate 2 or 3 hordes of Uruk-hai. Okay? Now, I could do that. And I could activate the Uruk-hai, and I could make them, all right, go attack maybe Frodo. But I decide at this moment to instead kind of, I might spend a fear point here. It's difficult. But what I'm going to do is he's going to act in accordance with his motivation. Find the halflings! Find the halflings! And then I'm going to tell Aragorn, the Uruk-hai, which are attacking you, stop for a moment. They hear the sound of their brutal leader, and they give up their attack on you. And you see that, because they're driven by this single-minded desire for man flesh. And, it's not in their nature to apprehend halflings, right? But they obey the words. They start falling back and start heading down the hill to go after Frodo. Instead, I'm making a soft move, because I want to see what Aragorn's going to do here. Now, if Aragorn decides, I don't know, to keep killing Uruk-hai, I might make the hard move and spotlight an adversary and start having them try to kill or capture Frodo. But instead of just activating, because again, to activate the Uruk-hai would be to make a very hard move. Remember, the book gives us 16 GM moves, and spotlight an adversary is number 13 of 16. So it's in my fourth category, right? It's in the fourth column of moves here. Okay. So it's all the way up here. So it's in the 4th column. So it's a harder move. And I don't think we're there yet. And I want to. I'm more interested. I don't want to capture Frodo. I want to see Aragorn be a hero. And my job is to give him that opportunity. So I am instead going to create a moment, and I'm going to, instead of spotlighting an adversary, I'm going to reveal an unwelcome truth. Okay? The Uruk-hai are falling back, and they are going after Frodo because of what Lurt said. Aragorn, what do you do?
I'm the halfling! I'm the halfling!
So this is me describing, right, the Uruk-hai are breaking off their attack. They're going down to capture Frodo. So Aragorn, so what do you do? I jump off the fucking thing, Elendil, and I go and I crash into them. By the way, I love that, and he does this a lot more in the books, but Aragorn's battle cry is just to yell out the name of his ancestor, which I always think is really cool. But Elendil is his ancestor who, Isildur's father, the Númenorian king who came to Middle-earth after the fall of Númenor and after the breaking of Arda and founded the realms of Gondor and Arnor. The original man of the West, a.k.a. the Dunedain, who brought Westerness to Middle-earth. So Aragorn, I give Aragorn this cool moment, and what does Aragorn choose to do? He goes, Derek, I run to the edge, and I leap off, and I'm just going to body tackle into as many, I'm going to throw myself into the middle of the horde. Now, in my mind, that's awesome. And he rolls, and it's kind of a situation where he's obviously successful here, because he stops them. But I could also argue that maybe he fails because it's against a horde. He is unlikely to just look like a bitch and fall and just land on nobody and just die. He goes down to the ground. He's knocked prone. You think that happened by accident? No, that's what I used my fear move for. I revealed an unwelcome truth or an unexpected danger. Remember, go back to our PDF. If I can bring it up. Go back to our PDF. One of the things that we can do is reveal an unwelcome truth or unexpected danger. A harder version of this move might be that the enemy pins the character against a wall, making them restrained until they can make a roll to escape the adversary's grasp. In this situation, I said, hey, Aragorn, you leap down, fear move. Again, maybe it was another success with fear. By the way, you're starting to see here that when you succeed with fear, the stories become a lot better. But he gets knocked down, and I make him prone. Maybe I spend a fear point, to attack him while he is prone, really driving home the point. And, things are getting pretty hairy for our would-be king. But this is a situation where Aragorn and Gimli, Legolas and Gimli were here. And in the fiction, I go, hey, you guys weren't here during this scene. So, and again, hopefully this plays out really quickly. There's no initiative. We don't have to worry about them. But I say, but now we're in a situation where Aragorn's on the ground and he's in trouble. And I could say Aragorn's going to get fucked. I'm going to spend all my fear points. I'm going to activate all of the different hordes. I'm going to activate Lurts. I'm going to just pile DPS onto Aragorn while he's prone. Instead, I go, Legolas and Gimli, you show up at just the perfect time. The hordes are surrounding Aragorn. He's on the ground, prone. Another group of Uruk-hai have broken off and are headed down into Parth Galen through the woods after Frodo. What do you do? Well, Gimli and Legolas are obviously being played by people who came from, 5e or Pathfinder 2, because their characters are very heavily damage spec'd, and we respect that, I guess. And this is a moment for them to show off, their characters. So again, this is clearly a spotlight the players moment. Axe gets thrown into this Uruk-hai on the left. Legolas shoots his bow. Maybe they succeed with hope. I say, Aragorn, your allies arrive. The Uruk-hai are distracted. What do you do? And he goes, I stand up. And I go, yeah, no roll. You just stand up because, your allies arrived and they succeeded. They succeeded with hope. This is the heroes getting the spotlight passed around between them a bunch. Maybe they're working together. This is kind of a dun da da da, right? This is sort of a heroic, moment. And this might be a moment as the DM where I back off the gas a little bit, right? I've been twisting. I've been sort of directing things, but you know what? This is a moment our heroes have arrived, right? The mighty trio, elf, man, dwarf, they're together. And there's a bunch of Uruks around. There's several different horde enemies. And this is a time for them to just kind of kick ass and take names. And so we're going to do, and maybe they do get a bunch of successes with hopes. And they kind of just crush, right? And kill a bunch of orcs. So, orc down, arrow, axe, another one, axe, kill that one, right? So, that, now granted, that might only be, I don't know, if you're doing a horde rules, that might only be 1 or 2 attacks, maybe 1 attack from each of them, maybe 2 attacks, right? From Legolas. But it's just an instance of where I go like, maybe I let the players kind of decide who gets the spotlight next, giving everybody a chance. Movie's a touch loud. Okay. I'll turn it down a smidge. This is a great moment. So then I get back to Frodo, our player who's Frodo, because I do want to, make sure we're not forgetting. So I describe Frodo as, sort of trying to get away and falling. And I'm, again, revealing an unwelcome truth, because I asked Frodo to make an agility roll, and Frodo failed. He failed with hope. So what I describe Frodo as is like, hey, Frodo, your enemies are giving you time. Your allies are giving you time to escape. And I'll turn it down a little bit more. I can see that it's starting to clip a little bit. All right, your allies are giving you time, Frodo. You escape, and I go, make your roll. And maybe Frodo, I don't know, critical fumbles here. Maybe he fails with hope. I'm not sure what it is. But I'm going to say you're rolling down the hill. You're in a sheer and blind panic. You trip over roots. You begin stumbling down the hill. You kind of land in a dazed moment for a moment. You're kind of almost shaken. You're kind of not out of it. Orcs are coming in, but you rolled with hope. So again, this is all about creating cool moments. And this is when I talk about taking a failure with hope. Now, I could take that failure and knock Frodo prone and say, I'm going to, drive the dagger home, and I'm going to start spamming monster activations and kill Frodo while he's down. But instead, I trip him prone. Maybe I bank a fear point, and then I say, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli have arrived. They've killed a bunch of Uruks. Frodo is running away. The Uruk are chasing after him. What do you do? Now, we didn't see this. This was off screen. But Aragorn goes, I rush over there as fast as I possibly can. And I go, awesome. Make an agility roll or make a might roll, right, to represent covering that distance quickly enough. And in this case, looks like Aragorn succeeded. Maybe he succeeded with hope. And so I say, okay, Aragorn, this is a cool moment. I'm not going to pass the mic to somebody else. I'm going to keep it with Aragorn for a moment. All he did was just run across the battlefield. I want to see the payoff. Aragorn rushes in and re-engages the Uruks, right? If we have our little minis on our maps, I'm moving them across, and I go, they're rushing in on Frodo, and he's like, no. If you've ever played 13th Age, this is what it feels like to intercept. It's a really cathartic moment to be able. We're so used to D&D where we can't do anything when it's not our turn. So if our prone ring bearer hobbit and then it's the monster's turn, there's nothing we can do. We just have to sit there. We are the guardian of the realms of men. We are Aragorn, son of Arathorn. We are the 39th great-grandson of Elendil, of the heir of Isildur, of the northern kingdom of Arnor. I guess I just watched the orcs murder my friend. When you play this game, look for these moments where you could say the orcs activate and they murder your friend, and instead make it a soft move and say, hey, Aragorn. Again, I told you a lot. This is the one that's going to come up the most. The Uruk-hai are rushing down the hill, and they're about to kill or, steal the ring, kill Frodo, capture Frodo. And instead of spotlighting an adversary, I'm going to move. I'm going to take the minis or whatever. I'm going to move them on the battlefield. I am moving them. Okay. I am showing them how the world is reacting. You could argue that I'm shifting the environment if the environment is a bunch of Uruk-hai. What I am not doing is spotlighting an adversary, because I'm not making a mechanical move to attack and engage. What I'm really doing is revealing an unwelcome truth, which is Aragorn is getting run down. Okay? Or the ring bearer is getting run down, and I want to give my heroes an opportunity to do something great. And I'm going to be completely honest with you here. If Aragorn failed that agility roll, if Aragorn did not succeed at rushing to Frodo's aid, at this point, I would probably make a PC mark stress as a consequence for their actions. And I would basically say, Aragorn, you get there in time, but you're starting to become winded from rushing around this battlefield. Mark stress. This is a cool moment. It's a cool moment for all of our heroes, but it's an especially cool moment for Aragorn. And, Frodo already feels kind of like bad because, he tripped and fell and knocked his head and he's a little bit dazed. The last thing I want to do is then punish him and brutally murder him. And again, I'm not trying to win here. I'm trying to create cool moments, just like Peter Jackson was. So, maybe Aragorn didn't succeed, and maybe he had to mark a stress, and instead I let him get there. So he rushes in and he attacks. Now, Aragorn here, you might argue, maybe he isn't even making an attack here. This is more of a player move, because Aragorn basically says, like, at this point, I'm not even striking to kill, right? I just want to stop them. I want to take out their legs. I want to trip them up. I want to, keep them from getting to Frodo. So, Frodo, Aragorn succeeds. And I say, Frodo, you have a moment to clear your head and get back up and get running. Aragorn did his thing. Aragorn, Frodo, you could continue your escape. Maybe Aragorn or maybe Frodo, we created like an 8 clock for Frodo's character, right? So Frodo's almost like playing this like mini game where Frodo has to like dodge, dip, dive, depth, wield. And he could put on the ring, but then he knows that there's a real risk and danger for that. He's already really weak. Maybe, if Frodo runs out of hope or something, we have some sort of special mechanic, for the One Ring and stuff like that. He's already super stressed out. Maybe Frodo is vulnerable right now because of how stressed out he is. So he's really, really in a tough spot. He's literally vulnerable. He's emotionally vulnerable. He's physically vulnerable. So he's playing this mini game of trying to get ticks, right, against this escape clock while this scene is going on. So, and he's doing agility rolls and finesse rolls, and, he's trying to hide and run and, stay out of sight and, all this other stuff. So Frodo MacGuffin. Yes. So Frodo gets success. He gets up, he gets some distance, and then we come back to our main characters. Again, I want to continue to highlight how the world's reacting. So again, maybe that's a continuation from, again, some of this is from movie making purposes. But like, that might be a continuation from the attacks that Frodo was making earlier. So now Frodo is asked to make a hide check, okay, which he obviously succeeds at here. The orcs are going past him. And here, again, remember, I'm imagining that, Oh, yeah, Derek, that's kind of a cool idea, right? Like hiding reduces the countdown. Yeah. That's a cool idea, right? You can have some fun mechanical elements there. So in our world here, Merry and Pippin are NPCs. And I'm going to ask Frodo a question and then build on the answer.
Frodo. Hide here, quick.
So now Frodo has to make a choice, right? He could hide, and it's a really great Hobbit hidey hole, right? Like they'll never find you. Apparently, hobbits are practically invisible, but Frodo knows he can't choose safety, And I might even ask the player of Frodo's character, like Frodo, this is a moment for you. You know that the three of you could hide and get away from these big lumbering brutes, but do you? This is a character-defining moment for you. Because you can't hide anymore. You have to risk it. The needs are too great. But do you? Maybe there's a role here, but probably this is just a player decision. And I'm asking the player this question, Frodo this question, through the lens of Merry and Pippin, right?
Come on.
And this might not have been precipitated by anything other than, because telling the players how the world reacts. This is an extremely soft move, right? This is our number 2 out of 16 in terms of moves, right? And so remember, the GM can make a move anytime the players look to you to see what happens. They can make a move whenever, you can make a move whenever you want, but you can make a move whenever the natural consequences would follow. Maybe the move was actually Merry and Pippin are going like, come on, Frodo, hide, right? That's what we do. We're hobbits. We hide. And now I'm turning that into, hey, Frodo, because now people are looking to me to see what happens. And I go, Frodo, this is your choice. You're the ring bearer. You have to make this decision.
What's he doing?
So there's Frodo making his choice.
He's leaving.
So Frodo feels really bad about it.
No!
So we had a quiet moment of success and tension, but I've built up a lot of fear points. And this is the end of the adventure, right? It's the end of the movie. So I spend a fear point and I go, your best friends jump out because they're so upset about your decision. And Pippin says, no, you can't do it. You can't be leaving. And all the Uruks see them and immediately turn from where they were going in the wrong direction and begin heading in towards the right direction. Frodo, what do you do? So in a way, it's me revealing an unwelcome truth or unexpected danger, and then again going back to the question, because now I've upped the stakes. Right before it was like, well, we just hid from the Uruks, we're safe. But now I'm basically saying, like, Frodo, do you leave your friends to die? Maybe with the power of the ring, maybe the three of you together could get out. Your best friend, Merry,
Run, Frodo. Go.
says, run, Frodo, go.
Hey! Hey, you! Over here! Hey! Over here! This way!
So our main character continues to make progress on his clock and makes a tough decision. And by the way, there probably wasn't any dice rolls there, but that doesn't mean. So when people talk about FBT, and I know Beowulf was kind of like pleasantly surprised when I talked about this, because we always argue about that. Okay. That was not FBT. Okay. FBT is, how tasty is the potato soup? That is a very meaningful moment. And sometimes we need to use the dice, but sometimes it's cool to let the players know what the stakes are and let them make a real choice, both as their player character, but also as the person. Where do you want to see this story go? And I defend the ability for the player to be a author of their own story. But, when you're in a moment like that, sometimes using dice can trivialize it. And that's why, again, this is a great move. Ask questions and build on the answers. Okay. This wasn't a dice decision. This was your decision. And we're going to go from there. All right, where are we at next?
It's working! I know it's working! Run!
All right, so, I go, okay, Frodo, Merry, Frodo's escaping. Merry and Pippin are being chased. Maybe I throw down a new clock. Merry and Pippin, are killed, right? Hey, what's up, Agile Monk? Good to see you. And so I go, okay, we haven't seen our heroes for a while. Back to you guys. All right, you guys are under attack. In fact, I might do it with a fear point to cut back to our monsters. I spotlight an adversary. I attack the players and then, maybe do a little bit of damage on them. Maybe they absorb with their armor or whatever. Hit points are kind of an abstract resource anyways. But then we get back to, look, Daggerheart is not shy about saying this is a game about combat, and the characters have cool cards and they have cool abilities, and I want to see them using them. And so, yeah, we're gonna let some players, make some attack rolls. Legolas is getting in with his knife work. Again, this could also be a situation where, maybe there were some other moves off screen, but I could take away an opportunity. Now it says permanently, so maybe I should think about this in a different way. I guess it's kind of reveal an unwelcome truth, but one of the things I might tell Legolas is, hey, the Uruk-hai are surrounding you and they're too close, right? This is no place for a bow. If you want to shoot with your bow here, you're going to have disadvantage, or you're going to have to mark a stress just to even shoot your bow. And Legolas says, cool. All right, I'm going to bust out my knives. I'm going to go to work with, it's all knife work down here, Thank you, Aaron.
Aaron tipped $15. What should we do with DH? How about an environment stream?
Well, Aaron, the question about what should we do for DH is bigger than doing a stream. It's more of like the big picture, because again, we wanted to do an actual play. We had 3 players lined up, which I thought was actually going to be a lot of fun, because 4 and 5 players, number one, people get less spotlight time, and also it makes scheduling more of a pain in the butt. So 3 players in my mind was kind of ideal. Plus, I really love 3-player games and RPGs. 4 is good. 5 starts to get too much. The problem is one of our players had to back out. So now it's just a GM and 2 players. And I don't know if that is a weird dynamic for Daggerheart, for actual plays. I just don't know if there's enough, meat on the bone to deliver with that premise. So, I'm kind of like, I don't know what to do, That's where we're at. So anyways, Legolas, but thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it. I mean, you should play it. Yeah, I should. I could play it. I could get players to play it, but them people being on the show is a different situation, Kyle, Kai, you know what? I like that one, actually. If we extend the environment a little bit better, Kai, I actually like Kai's thing here. Shift the environment. The Uruks have closed in. You can't use your bow, right? Or again, maybe you can, but you're going to take damage, or you're going to have to mark stress. Give your players options, people. They will appreciate it way more. Rather than saying you can't do a thing, say you can, but you're going to have disadvantage, or you're going to mark a stress, or you have to mark a hit point just to use your bow because the orcs are too close. Let the player make the decision, even if it's not a good one. So, Legolas is carving up. Maybe Legolas succeeds with fear. We activate Spotlight another adversary. We attack Aragorn. Oh, but looks like it wasn't a Spotlight of an adversary. In fact, maybe it was a Spotlight and adversary. So I'm gonna do another thing here. I Spotlight an adversary. Now, I've talked before about how I don't consider the moves in Daggerheart to be completely locked in. What you just saw here is why, number one, Derek wants players to be able to help other players after the roll. Nimble does this. 2, this is why I want players' defense to be a roll they make. It's a reaction roll. See, in Nightheart, in Daggerheart, this is the orc attacks you, Aragorn, make an evasion check. Aragorn fails by 1 or 2, and then Gimli says, I aid him, I spend a hope, and I aid my friend, and boost his defense high enough to block that motherfucking attack. And what you just saw play out in the movie, I promise you, plays out extremely well at the table. Okay? That feeling of empowerment, of being able to not only roll your defense, but then to be able to spend your point after the roll to turn your friend's failure into a success is incredibly powerful. It is such an empowering feeling. I've said before that sometimes spending meta currencies can actually end up making you feel worse than if you hadn't spent them at all. And we've all been there, right? Where you spend your entire turn to aid your ally, or you set up a really powerful aid, or you give them a big buff. And basically, you take your turn, a big part of your turn, and then they roll an 18, and they don't mean to be a dick, but they kind of end up going, "Oh, I would have hit anyways." I totally would have. Oh, I would have crit anyways. I didn't need your help. It's like we say it. I don't know why we say it, because we all know it's true, and there's no feeling bad. In D&D, it just doesn't make a difference whether you hit by 5 or you hit by 7. It just doesn't make a difference. Okay. So in games that I've played where defense is a player driven role, where heroes and other PCs can help people after the fact, is tremendously cool for the game. And Creeply says, having my players roll evasion and help as reaction has been working great at my table. And I would believe it would be. Aaron says, I should sell this 3rd spot in the AP to the highest bidder. Well, the problem with that, Aaron, is you would need to live in Cleveland, Ohio, because it's not online. It's in person. So Gimli comes in. Gimli feels like a boss. Now, alternatively, maybe Gimli is a guardian. Maybe he's a warrior, multi-class guardian. There could have been a game mechanic at work here as well. So obviously, after Gimli does that awesome spot, Derek goes, awesome, Gimli, spotlight to you, right? Like that hero just spent their hope to defend their fellow player. Of course, the spotlight's going to go to him. And he goes, I'm going to bury my great axe into this Uruk-hai's chest. One of my favorite moments is in the behind the scenes footage where they're talking about John Rhys Davies, and they say they're like, well, John, we're wearing armor, but try to miss us if you can't. You can, but and then Dominic Monaghan is like, John would just hit them full on every single time. Like he wasn't trying not to just, obviously they were fake axes, and they were wearing armor, but it was fake armor, but he was just walloping them as hard as he could, which I love that story from the appendices. So more, Aragorn, so Aragorn's attacked. It misses because of Gimli. Gimli attack. Gimli succeeds with hope. Maybe Gimli critically hits. He just, he just rips through the orc. So the players have the spotlight. So I'm like, Gimli, who goes next, Legolas or Aragorn? And he goes, Aragorn, back to you. Aragorn has a cool moment. And then Aragorn goes, back to you. They're just killing people left and right. Now, maybe those two, maybe that cut. Maybe this is what I might sometimes do this as well. Gimli hits. He critically hits. He kills the first orc, but it's a horde, so you get to kill a bunch of people. And I go, okay, Gimli, you start hacking down orcs. We'll get back to you in a minute. Aragorn, what do you do? And Aragorn goes, I stab the guy, and I bash his head, and I go, cool, yeah, you also do a bunch of damage. But we'll go back to Gimli. Gimli, keep describing how you're killing orcs. Gimli's like, oh, I take another one out at the knee and just go right straight through it, and he falls over before I bring the axe up and just bury it in my head. Back to you, Aragorn. And they're not actually making attacks here. They made their attack before we got into this back and forth. Ooh. Wow.
I am strong.
I love it. This is
Strong.
This is something that Derek has to learn. Okay, I've only run Daggerheart as a one shot at 2 cons. That is awesome. So I still have to wrap my head around the idea of the existence of a tag team move. VA, this is a great example of a tag team move, right? After Gimli comes in with the big assist, Aragorn and Gimli kind of give each other a nod, high five. You know, there's this one orc horde left. It has 4 hit points. Derek is, Derek plays a rule where you can only do 3 hit points of damage, but when you crit or when you do a tag team move, Derek lets you extend the damage cap to 4. That would totally be a house rule I would do, by the way. And they go off, right? And they just, wallop, trollop these orcs and just have a really great moment of just describing how they're like really, killing and hacking through them. NPCs are leaving. And again, this might just be me going back to showing the world reacting, reminding you of what the NPCs are doing. Again, these are NPCs. Now, at this point, movies do have an advantage because normally I would never have allowed Boromir's character to be sidelined for this long. But it is a movie. So maybe he got here late, or maybe he was going to the bathroom, or maybe he's a very patient player. And, we understand that, and I even tell, because his character was tempted by the ring. And I say, maybe his character had to like avoid death, almost because his character was basically like taken over. It was almost like his character died essentially. And I basically say, hey, you're going to sit out the first part of this fight. Because, you're kind of recovering from that avoid death moment, right? Even though your character wasn't actually killed, like fundamentally your character was possessed. You were taken over by the ring. And what do you want to do? And he goes, I'm going to avoid death. And so he does, setting up him, by the way, to do the heroic sacrifice later. All right. So I get back to Boromir. And I say, all right, the Uruk-hai are charging down the hill, and they are crazed. And their big leader guy is not around. These Uruk-hai have resorted back to they're not thinking. They are just going to butcher these hobbits, right? They're just going to kill them. Yes, their mission was to find the halflings and maybe take them prisoner, but these guys are they're savage, and the only reason they even remotely have a chance of listening is if their big leader dude is around, and their big leader dude is not around. They're going to kill the NPCs. And here they come. And here comes our boy. Here comes our boy. So I go, Boromir, welcome back to the game. Boromir, you see that Merry and Pippin are about to be charged down by an entire elite horde of Uruk-hai. It's just you, buddy. What are you doing? And he says, I'm charging in. Now, I like to think that what we just saw there was because I'm not really going to spotlight an adversary, but I basically say, Aragorn or Boromir, they're attacking the Hobbit NPCs. Do you want to, spend a hope? Do you want to take the attack instead? Or maybe Boromir's a guardian and he has some sort of, he did have a shield previously. Now, I do want to highlight something here, though, which is really important. I'm going to go back a little bit. This is called posthumous flashbacking. Okay? That's so. Are you accepting applications from nearby cities 2 hours away? I don't think I would do that to anybody. That would be very callous and mean for sure. The other problem, Setso, thank you so much by the way for the super chat, is the other problem with it is, you know, if someone comes onto my show, like when you're a patron and you sign up for a game and it's cool, you know, you're not paying for the game the way that like a paid for DM works. You know, it's a perk. It's a part of being part of the Patreon. You get your tickets, and you know, you could argue that money's being exchanged, but it's indirect enough that I don't feel bad about it. But when you join the show, it's a job. And I kind of feel weird about putting patrons who are fans, who are supporters of the channel. And I do feel kind of bad or weird putting them in a situation where now, like, you know, I'm going to yell at you if you fuck up. You know, like, I mean, like I don't want people to feel like it's this, like, I don't want that, because it's a job. It becomes a job is what it basically comes down to. So I don't know. You know, probably not, but also because, again, that would be, I mean, I'm sure you're kidding, but, you know, if even if somebody would live nearby, I would be very hesitant to do that. Okay. So Boromir joins the fight, right? And I'm describing this massive horde of Uruk-hai. All right, people, this is a really tough move. I could argue, actually, you know what it probably is? You guessed it. It's probably reveal an unwelcome truth. You could also argue it's making an unseen move, but the players do see it, so never mind. It really is reveal an unwelcome truth. But another way to think of it is it's taking away an opportunity permanently, or you could argue it's me using their backstory against them. Does anybody know what move Derek just made? I'll see if you guys get it. Anybody? Bueller? Are we still live? Nobody knows what, nobody gets it? Nobody sees what it is? Maybe my chat died. Did my chat die? All right. People are here. All right. Test. Everybody's here. Okay. So nobody gets it. All right. Nobody sees the move. All right. So Boromir's PC is coming in to do the, the big save, right? I go, Boromir, when you went to confront Frodo, I think you left your shield behind. And Boromir goes, shit. Yeah, I did. So obviously in the movie, all right, we saw that happen earlier, but the PC Boromir, the player character Boromir, would never, ever not have their shield, right? Like, ever. But I want to make this a tough spot. So I spend a fear to basically say, as you charge in, Boromir, you don't have your shield, right? Your damage thresholds are changed. Your ability to use your shield is lessened. Maybe you have an ability that you were counting on to count from your shield, but you don't have your shield. And I might even spend a fear to do that. And, I say it as a consequence of the actions. Because again, in the movie, Boromir's like, oh, I put my shield down to go gather firewood. But like a real PC would never do that. So the way that we can make this scene work where Boromir doesn't have his shield is by saying, I'm going to spend a fear and you don't have your shield. Right. And by the way, look, I'm cheating, but I'm spending a fear point and I'm taking away something permanently. I mean, technically, if you survive this, you could go, get it from the shore bank. But, Kendall, this is a different type of game. And that's what I have fear for. You know? And you know, that's you gotta roll with the punches. It's really interesting that as GMs and players, we are 100% okay with the GM activating all the monsters and killing the player character. But if we spend a fear point to say you don't have your shield, people get mad. And I don't think you're wrong, Kendall. I'm simply saying that this is why people and players need to reframe and recontextualize it. And I also think this is why the fear spend, Glenn, is really important. You know? So it did cost me something. I had to cheat. I had to do bullshit, but it cost me a fear, and it's well within my rights to do so. So you're going to have to fight this. I am 100% nerfing their character, Mateo. I'm 100% nerfing their character, and I'm doing it through a fear spend. 100%. But that's because I want to create a more dramatic moment, and that's my job. And my job is to fill your life with danger. It is not a challenge-based game, Mateo. I can't kill Boromir in this scene. Spoiler alert, Boromir dies. But that's not my choice. So, well, and that's why I think people need to be re-educated to a certain extent. Boromir rushes in. I say, Boromir, he goes, can I spend a hope to be targeted by the attack? And I said, absolutely. Now, Boromir grabs it and kicks him. But, in Daggerheart terms, Boromir may have gotten hit. He maybe took a point of damage. He absorbed it with his armor. And I go, Boromir, you absorbed the blow completely. Back to you. What do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm going to, grab his axe and attack him with it and rip him and cut him in half. Which he does. And I go, oh, the hobbits are surrounding you. They're stabbing and killing as best as they can with the barrow white blades. And I might even say, Aragorn or Boromir, you get advantage. You get a bonus D6 from each of the two hobbits when they can help you out, with your attacks. And he's like, oh yeah, come on, Merry and Pippin. These are like the party's little NPC, buddies. They're like pets to the party. In fact, going back earlier, remember, it was Boromir who was working with Merry and Pippin and teaching them about sword fighting. So this is a great way to not to use their backstory against them, but to use the PC's backstory for them. Not every GM move has to be you being a dick. So in some ways, this is showing how the world reacts, or it's the NPCs acting according to their motivation. But it's me basically pointing out that, hey, earlier in the adventure, you were talking about how, and at camp, you're like, hey, can I like start teaching Merry and Pippin about how to use blades and swords? And I'm like, yeah, cool. And I'm recalling back to that moment. And I think that's really, really cool. Or maybe I go, oh, Boromir, if you spend a hope, whenever you hit an attack, you can call upon Merry and Pippin to do bonus damage, like VA is suggesting, right? I kind of give him a temporary new hope feature, And again, this is another thing that you see all the time. We've seen this happen 3 times, I think, so far, this fight alone, where a melee character whips a dagger or a blade or an axe at another creature. What you just saw there, cinematically, so, maybe because this is a different fight, it's more Boromir. It's not the hordes of Uruk-hai. Maybe these are actually proper minions. In Daggerheart, we know that there's this thing called minion damage overflow. And technically, your character might only have a melee weapon with a reach of engaged. And the minion overflow rule allows you to kill minions, I think, out to very close, maybe, which is like 10, 15, 20 feet, I think, if you're doing it, by squares. So how does your melee character overflow hit points damage to minions who are 10 feet away or 15 feet away? The answer is you kill him, you stab him, you grab the dagger off the orc and then throw it into the neck of the other one. And again, this is where we can have fun with these rules by mechanically supporting the cool stuff that we actually want to be doing. So again, this is a great example of either the minion rules or the horde rules, you know, being able to, you know, sort of, you know, take against. It is so good. Oh, okay. Okay. So it is within range the attack would succeed against. Okay. Well, in that case, we'll go back to hordes because hordes is one gigantic mass of monsters. So there you go. Right. They can also run away. That is very true. They don't necessarily have to. Again, some of these orcs that are being taken out are just being like, you know, tripped, knocked out, left for dead, you know, whatever the case may be. For sure. All right. And of course, also remember too, at any point during all of this, you know, we could be improvising fear moves, creating all sorts of situations where, you know, we're just kind of making up things that players might want to do or, you know, have to do. So just keep that in mind. All right. Now, let's go back to Aragorn because we're about to see something here that I think is really, really important. Aragorn spends this entire sequence grappling. Ignore Legolas for a moment. I know we all pay attention to Legolas because this is a scene where he kills like, I don't know, 10 orcs or something like that. But pay attention to Aragorn in the background. Struggling with this Uruk-hai the whole time. So the Uruk-hai grabs him and he's taking him to task. To me, going back to our rules, this is, believe it or not, reveal an unwelcome truth or unexpected danger. Going back to our PDF, we can see that one of the things that we can do with our move come on. One of the things that we can do with our move is create unexpected danger. A hard version of this move might be an enemy pinning a PC against the wall, making them restrained until they make a roll to escape the adversary's grasp. Were they watching this scene when they wrote that down? Okay. I don't know if they were or not, but it sure seems like it. Aragorn is literally pinned against the wall and is restrained or grappled or whatever you want to call it for basically until he makes a roll to succeed. And in fact, we see Aragorn failing, right? So maybe the GM is banking fear points. He's causing stress to Aragorn. He's ticking down hit points. This is actually a scene where Aragorn is kind of getting his butt kicked until we go back to Legolas, who we could argue either crits against a horde and deals like, 3 points of damage, and which, if we're assuming that, it's 4 Uruk-hai or 5 Uruk-hai per hit point, kills 10 or 15 of them. Or like 12 or 15 of them. And eventually, as part of that, I just say, Aragorn fails to get out again. And I go, and Legolas crits. And I go, as part of that, I show, the world reacting. And I go, Aragorn, Legolas killed your guy for you. Because I'm not going to make Aragorn just keep spamming the roll. He rolled once. He failed. He suffered a little bit of a consequence. Legolas crits. He kills all the orcs, including the one that Aragorn was struggling with. But again, it's important to note these things, especially sometimes it's just a way for us to bank up our fear. Watch that again. Aragorn strained against the wall. Oh, a tree. Legolas crits, kills like 8, 9, 10 of them. Now you could even argue that maybe Aragorn spent a hope point to help Legolas there. Maybe that was supposed to be a tag team. And Aragorn rolled really badly. Aragorn's like, well, I rolled a 2 and a 1. And Legolas goes, well, I rolled double 9s. So we'll use mine. And I'm going to go off and, and we kind of, it's a cool moment for Legolas. Maybe, around the table, we're laughing at Aragorn, who's been, who engaged a horde of 80 and now is struggling against a single Uruk-hai. It's fine to have these moments. I'm not saying that Aragorn looks like a bitch here. Far the opposite. It's actually a way to make Legolas look great. But again, we can put the players in danger without just spamming spotlight and adversary. So that happens, and now there's a brief moment, right? The PCs have just killed all the Uruk-hai, right? So it's a quiet moment. So everyone looks to me to see what happens. This is a classic example of the players have the spotlight. They just tag teamed, or Aragorn helped Legolas. Legolas got a crit. He killed all the rest of the Uruk-hai. So that the remaining horde or 2 hordes, or whatever, is dead. And now there's nothing. So the players turn to me to ask what happens. And so I get to make a GM move, because when the players turn to you to see what happens, you get to make a GM move. And what I might do here is signal an imminent off-screen threat.
The Horn of Gondor.
Literally signaling an imminent off-screen threat. I tell them, now of course the players might know this, but their characters don't. And I describe them for the first time hearing the resounding horn of Gondor. 3 short bursts, right? We're under attack. And Legolas goes, the Horn of Gondor. So now we've kind of, again, shifted the scene a little bit, right? Because, sure, Frodo, we feel pretty confident, has gotten away. In fact, after that last moment where Frodo went away, maybe we just assumed that he did. But now the issue shifts, because again, in this scene here, we're not trying to, now that we're running, we're not trying to kill these Uruk-hai. In fact, what you're seeing here when they're making these attacks against the Uruk-hai, I don't even think they would count as attacks. This is just fluffy bullshit time. What I really think you're seeing here is an agility roll to move a far distance through a crowded battlefield such that the GM makes a DC. And this is really showing the players. Maybe this is a group action. Maybe these are a bunch of individual actions. But this is really the players trying to close the distance to fight their way, to get their way through these Uruk-hai. They're not interested in fighting these Uruk-hai. They're not interested in killing these Uruk-hai. They're interested in getting to them. So I think what we're showing here is, again, the threat of these monsters, and the threat of them isn't in spotlighting them. The threat of them is almost as an environment, okay? There's a bunch of Uruk-hai between you and Boromir. And, you don't know what's going on, but Boromir's blowing his horn. And they're trying to get down there. So they have to make these agility rolls. Now, believe it or not, what you're about to see here, I think, is a failure. Because you're going to see them hacking through Uruk-hai. You're going to see them spinning and killing them. But that's not their goal. In fact, the fact that they have to stop and kind of kill these Uruk-hai means that they're not actually accomplishing their goal, which is getting down to Boromir. See, Aragorn had to stop. He had to stop and do battle with them. That's Aragorn, in my opinion, failing the agility roll to move, and me as the GM saying, you get engaged in a sword fight with the Uruk-hai, and you guys are now kind of clashing, and you're stuck up for a moment. And we'll get back to you in a minute. But it's me basically showing them the consequences of their action. It's me showing them the danger that he is now fighting to it. And that's, by the way, why they don't show up in time, and Boromir has to fight all the Uruk-hai alone. So there are consequences to this. And this is, cinematic, but, this is basically me just describing the orcs now pouring in onto Boromir's position, right? He blew the horn, which for good and for ill is alerting his allies, but it's also literally bringing in every single Uruk-hai on the field of battle, including foreshadowing Lurtz, who we haven't seen since the beginning of the fight, right? The big bad leader, the one that you obviously want to spam spotlights on, hasn't even really been part of the battle since we first saw him. It's really funny, by the way. This was done with like a camera on a cable zipping through the woods. And nowadays, this shot would just be done on a drone, So now we're back to Boromir and his two Hobbit NPC allies. He's taking them to task. This is a great, this is a moment where the Guardian has triggered their unstoppable. Okay. They've triggered unstoppable and they are just fighting all the orcs at once. This is an opportunity where I think we're just spamming spotlight and adversary. The player are spamming attacks. We've gotten to the point now where we've built up enough tension, right? We've had cool moments for everybody. And now the claws are starting to come out. Remember, spotlight and adversary, capture, use your backstory against them, take away permanent opportunities. These are all the hardest of moves. And as we move into the last part of this scene, this is where the hard moves this is where the hard moves should start coming out. This is where the hard moves should start paying off. So again, Boromir had a great moment. I cut back to Aragorn. I go, you still hear the horn. You failed that agility roll. You still need to keep going. Right? They're attacking them. Killing more. Back to Aragorn. That was him being attacked. NPC's allies coming in. Adversaries are spotlighting. Hacking. Bonus damage. Spend a hope. More coming back. Now, here's a great moment where I describe, so, maybe this is a moment Boromir succeeds, but now he rolls with fear. Okay? Again, we've been trading blows. He rolls with fear. So I choose to reveal an unwelcome truth. Boromir, you've killed the orcs that were here, but you blew the horn. And now as you look up, you see all of the Uruks that were left. They've been called by your horn. They have abandoned Frodo, and they are all descending on your position. What do you do? So Boromir says, run, go, fall back. Right? He starts buying them position, buying them time, trying to engage with this. Does this have an effect? Yes, maybe no. Maybe I say that he gets a bonus to his defense because he's falling back. Maybe it's just a narrative moment, but it's important to describe it. And even though Boromir may not have taken an attack, I think it's important that we move the mini back and the Uruk-hai are pushing in, right? That Boromir is giving this falling back action to try to buy him and the hobbits more time. Maybe he's moving to a better defensive choke point. Boromir is still taking actions. He's still trying to control the battlefield. And whether or not we make a check there, I think we should reward him for that, whether it's with some sort of advantage or maybe the Uruks get disadvantaged to attack because, Boromir is doing something tactically and intelligently minded. This is him being attacked again. I'm spotlighting an adversary. They're attacking him. They might be doing damage. His armor is absorbing it. But, maybe at this point he's, gotten a few hit points of damage, right? Again, Boromir spending more hope to have his hobbits aid his attack. Throwing stones. And then here's the moment. Boromir rolls again. Killing them, hacking them. And you know what? Maybe he's rolling with hope. He's rolling with it. Now Derek drops a fear point, right? Because now the time has come. I drop a fear point to reveal an unwelcome truth / spotlight an adversary. Because you know what? It's time to end this. And the big bad leader shows up on the battlefield. Back to Boromir. He hacks through a couple more orcs. Look at this. They have the advantage. Listen to the music. I like to think that Boromir's just chain rolling with hope, here. He's maybe getting critical hits, but I've built up a bank of fear, and this is the end of the adventure, and by God, I'm going to use it. So I'm going to interrupt his awesome run of success with hope to cash in that fear. He should win. By all accounts, he should win. But the fear currency I have built up gives me the narrative and cinematic authority to dictate otherwise. And I'm going to spotlight Lurtz. And don't you know it? Lurtz has a bow, a coward's weapon. But listen to this bad boy creak. Oh, it does direct physical damage. That's right. Our guardian with his high armor, all of his armor slots, does nothing against the direct physical damage, right, of Lurtz's bow. Remember, direct damage means you don't get to mark armor slots. That means that when this hits, it's going straight to HP, baby. And Boromir has already been chipped out a little bit. And so our first hit off rip, maybe I do, Platinus. I spend another one. Lurtz has, experience, hates man, hates all men or hates all creatures, hates the free people. And boom. He is going to drop a crit right into our boy. And I just go right off. I go Boromir, mark 3 hit points of damage, no armor. And Boromir's like, oh my God, guys, that was direct. I've got a thing that lets me mark 2 points of armor and absorb 2 points, but I can't absorb this because he does direct damage with his bow. And I'm like, this is a huge moment. How does the world react? I bring that quiet moment of the hobbits, the fear, the terror, the uncertainty in their eyes. Boromir, you're hurt. You're on the verge of death. You have the spotlight. The orcs are here for the hobbits. What do you do? Attack. Oh, God, I love this scene so much. He goes, I attack. Fuck these orcs. Boromir rolls another success. Critical success. Success with hope. He's killing more of these orcs. Taking them down left and right. They can't even get to him. I spotlight them. They miss. So I spend a fear point. I spotlight my leader again. Because Boromir just went. So now I can spotlight the leader again. Spend another fear point. Mark the experience. Get me the bonus to attack roll. And right there, 2 hit points, 3 hit points of damage, direct, no armor to absorb it. Boromir is at 0 hit points. And what you're seeing right now is Boromir making a death move and deciding as a character, what should he do here? Avoid death? Risk it all? But if he risks it all, he could die. If you avoid deaths, who knows what will happen to the hobbits? The Uruk-hai seem like they are just going to kill the hobbits at this point. They're not holding back. So he decides to sacrifice and go out in a blaze of glory. He looks into their faces, their eyes. And I ask him, what do you do? Everything you see from here on out is a death move. Now, as a consequence of his death move, I tell Boromir, and he goes, well, what if I, he goes, what if I sacrifice? I go, if you sacrifice, then the hobbits will not be killed. They will be taken captured, but they will not be killed. So Boromir decides to sacrifice. I might even let him, he gets to make another attack. He gets to kill a couple more orcs on the way out. And then I describe him finally taking a third arrow and dropping to his knees, unable to continue to attack, slowly dying. And then the Uruk-hai, instead of coming in and killing the hobbits, hobbits charge, and the Uruk-hai grab them. They are not killed. They are captured. And they all begin leaving. So at all this point, he is basically, Boromir's character, for all intents and purposes at this point, is dead. But that could be very, well, no, Dr. Daggerheart, I was saying they were NPCs. So they can't surrender. They're NPCs. If they were PCs, then yes, we just saw them surrendering. Yes. You could also say that I kind of forced the group to split up, right? Yes, Platinus, it's also good. It's the end of the session. He doesn't have to sit around. That's very true. So, what was I doing here? Right. So this is just basically me going, look, I want to give Aragorn / Legolas / Gimli an opportunity to avenge their fallen friend. So again, I'm going to, basically say Boromir is dead, but you arrive on the scene just in time to see him about to get point blank shotted. What do you do? And he said, now Aragorn knows Boromir is dead, but he's not going to, let his friend be disrespected like that. So, and we get just a series of attacks. So Aragorn charges in, attacks Lurtz. The combat is engaged. He attacks. Aragorn attacks. Aragorn misses, right? Just misses the attack straight up. I go, Lurtz throws you back. Then, this is not an attack, what you're seeing here. This is just a GM move, again, revealing an unwelcome truth. Because we've shown this before, and I'll show it again, that one of the things is, a harder version of this move might be an enemy pinning a PC against a wall, making them restrained until they make a roll to escape the adversary's grasp. This isn't an attack roll. This is an environmental danger or shift. This isn't spotlighting an adversary. Okay? So he's going to do this, and I say, I'm going to use my GM move, and he's going to hurl his shield at you, and it's going to pin you to the ground or to the tree. And then I'm going to spend a fear point, because I want to go again, to spotlight Lurtz to attack you while I have advantage to attack you because you're pinned to the tree. Now, as I'm coming in to attack you, I miss. And your character, you take an action, you make a strength check, a might check, you get free. You punch him, you're rolling around. He's hacking, he misses, you kick him, you stab him. At this point, we're just doing a lot of spotlighting an adversary, going back and forth. Now, Lurtz, I could make a move here, an attack. Instead, I'm just taking a moment here to kind of just show him being evil and mean. Maybe I even spend a fear point just to show him being a super crazy, weird edgelord orc. Why not? I'm not here to beat Aragorn. I want to create cool moments. And obviously this is an awesome moment. I go, yeah, and then he throws the knife at you. Misses, deflects, he picks up the sword. More attacking. And Aragorn kills him, and I say, you know, he spits in your face and draws you in closer. Aragorn, what do you do? Or what does Matt Mercer say? How do you want to do this? He goes, I pull my sword out and chop his head off. And that's it. So that was the Battle of Parth Galen, sometimes called the Battle of Amon Hen, but really it's more appropriately called the Battle of Parth Galen. And that is how Daggerheart moves could be used to create quite an experience. Did Boromir's player create Gollum after this? You know what? Gollum could be a PC. I think he could be. I think he could be a PC. Kendall Carlson says, "Oh, I didn't get a save for that. I'm hearing it now." Lol. Nope. You don't get a save for it. I'm making a move. Hey, look at that. Pretty good. Licking the blade, a classic DM move. Absolutely. And why not? You know, at this point, I'm like, I want to spend my fear. I want to do something cool. I want to do something evil. I want to make this fight memorable. And so, you know, I do that. Yes. Yeah, right. Apparently that was a real scene. He did throw the knife. But I want my father back, you son of a bitch. That's right. He was an NPC, but then he got a transformation card, right? And he's got a transformation card. It's a double-sided transformation card where one side is Gollum and the other side is Smeagol. I want my Boromir back, you son of a bitch. And so, you know, they will look for his coming from the White Tower, but he shall not return. Be at peace, son of Gondor. I do not know what strength is in my blood, but I promise you this. I will not let the White City fall, nor our people fail. Our people. I would have followed you, my brother, my captain, my king. No notes. Perfect. Was Michael Fassbender? Perfection. And yeah, I mean it's well, let's put it this way. You'd be kicking a lot of orcs through trees and stone walls. That's for sure. Yeah, that would be quite the different experience. I could promise you that. But again, you know, you have to get rid of, you know, when we talk about these moves, like revealing dangers and unwelcome truths, you have to realize it's not about winning. The GM isn't trying to win. He can't win. The player can just avoid death. If the player thinks the GM is being a complete, whatever reason, I mean, you shouldn't be in that campaign. But if the player really thinks the GM is like cheating almost, even though they're not cheating, they're using their moves. If the GM is spending a bunch of fear and a bunch of stuff, spending all this fear trying to kill your character, then just avoid death and just kind of be like, fuck you. You can't kill me, dude. You can't do it. So cool. I'm glad you spent 10 fear trying to kill my character. I'm glad I drained that from your resources. Now you can't pull that shit on anybody else. In fact, in some ways, it's a waste of time because I can't do it anyways. So, it's about creating moments, and it's just the same as the players have to realize they're not there to win, and the GM is not there to win. More so than in any other game that most people have played. Daggerheart is all about leveling the playing field between the players and the GMs. And so it puts you into that same mindset, right? Which is, I'm not here to compete with you. We're here to collaborate. We're here to tell cool stories. We're here to roll dice and figure stuff out. See, we could get together and we could go up on stage or, you know, in a college classroom and be an improv group. But an improv group is just, you know, you making stuff up. Role-playing games add dice and mechanics that force and push our our ad hoc story in new, unexpected, exciting, potentially weird directions that we would have never come up with on our own. And that's why the dice are fun, and that's why we shouldn't just ignore them. And that's why TTRPGs are such a unique medium, and why they aren't just acting in improv. And I think if you are just acting in improv, you're leaving a lot on the table. And it's also why it's not just a board game or a miniature war game. It is something in between. It is using game elements for storytelling. And I think if you don't use both of those, you're not really getting all of the marrow out of the TTRPG experience. And I think Daggerheart is a great melding of those two philosophies. Oh, Glenn, it's a fantastic scene. I love it. That's right, Dr. D. Hart. More PBTA in general, but especially Daggerheart. The DM is playing the game. The GM, I should say, is playing the game as well. You have a role to fill. You have mechanics that you have to, use and follow and abide by. And obviously, no Daggerheart game is ever going to be as perfect as that scene, because that scene was written right by professional authors for a specific effect. I'm simply showing you that, with Daggerheart, we have this opportunity to use these GM moves, these fear points, to create these cinematic moments. How do you think Fate Accelerated would have handled this scene? A lot of compels, more than anything else, just like normal Fate stuff. People would be making skill checks. You'd be making overcome obstacles. Sometimes you'd be dealing damage and stress to a monster or two. What it would lack would be the sort of the GM carte blanche to, enforce or push as much of a narrative. But I still think Fate would be pretty good about doing it. So, Helm's Deep next. It's 10 o'clock, Kendall. So I told you we'd be lucky to get through one, and we were. Also, Helm's Deep is an hour long. That battle was 11 minutes. But, you can think about all the moments in the Helm's Deep battle. And I also think it's really important to note, by the way, that, at no point was when we started that scene with Frodo and Aragorn, we were going back and forth. We're making GM moves and blah, blah, blah. And then we continued to do that even when the quote unquote combat started. There's no difference between those scenes. It was just flowed right into each other. If it's gotta be pretty close, Absolutely. Thaddeus, that's what makes for good tension, and fiction is ups and downs and ups and downs, I mean, you think about that Helm's Deep thing, right? The great moment. They seem like they're winning, right? Is this all you can muster, Saruman? And the GM goes, all right, fuck you. Spend a fear point. You know what? Spend 2 fear point. How about this? In a world of medieval peasants, my boy's coming in with a gunpowder bomb. And you're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, flashback. Saruman, he's using science to create gunpowder in a very primitive way. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, he has a mind of metal and machines. And I'm like, oh, and now there's a Urukai berserker, and he's charging the gate, and you're like, this is some bullshit. And, you're right, it is. If we were trying to play a fair game where, we're trying to see who could win, yeah, that would be absolutely, not fair. But that's not what we're trying to do here. What can men do against such reckless hate? Ride out and meet them. For death and glory, for your people. The sun is rising. Look, remember, on the 3rd day, look to the east. What was it? Look to the east on the 3rd day at dawn. The first light of dawn or something like that. I mean, it's a great movie as well. Right. Riders of Rohan show up. They wipe out all the orc legions. The orc legions are in full retreat. And then that amazing horn, top 3 horns of all time, that, that it's just such a good horn. But my favorite horn, of course, is Fourth Aerolingus. That's the best horn. Actually my favorite movie maybe from the whole trilogy. So good. It's absolutely so good. If you want something really cool, you gotta Gimli blowing the horn at Helm's Deep. I'm not even really sure if that, I don't think that was in the books, but I like that they added it. Really cool thing is if you look, there's a great Tolkien reads that scene, and they have his voice, and it's just so awesome.
Now silently the host of Rohan moved forward into the field of Gondor.
This is Tolkien actually saying this.
Slowly but steadily, like the rising tide through breaches in a dike, that men of thought secure. But the mind and will of the Black Captain were bent wholly on the falling city, and as yet no tidings came to him, warning that his designs held any flaw. After a while the king led his men away somewhat eastward, to come between the fires of the siege and the outer fields.
Awesome.
Still they were unchallenged, and still Theoden gave no signal. At last he halted once again. The city was now nearer. A smell of burning was in the air, and a very shadow of death. The horses were uneasy. But the king sat upon Snowmane, motionless, gazing upon the agony of Minas Tirith, as if stricken suddenly by anguish or by dread. He seemed to shrink down, cowed by age. Merry himself felt as if a great weight of horror and doubt had settled on him. His heart beat slowly. Time seemed poised in uncertainty. They were too late. Too late was worse than never. Perhaps Theoden would quail, bow his old head, turn, slink away to hide in the hills. Then suddenly Merry felt it at last, beyond doubt, a change. Wind was in his face. Light was glimmering. Far, far away in the south the clouds could be dimly seen as remote grey shapes rolling up, drifting. Morning lay beyond them. But at that same moment there was a flash, as if lightning had sprung from the earth beneath the city. For a searing second it stood dazzling far off in black and white, its topmost tower like a glittering needle. And then as the darkness closed again, there came rolling over the fields a great boom. At that sound the bent shape of the king sprang suddenly erect. Tall and proud he seemed again, and rising in his stirrups he cried in a loud voice, more clear than any there had ever heard a mortal man achieve before, "Arise, arise, riders of Theoden! Fell deeds awake, fire and slaughter! Spear shall be shaken, shield be splintered, sword day, red day, ere the sun rises. Ride now, ride to Gondor!" With that he seized a great horn from Gudlaf, his banner-bearer, and he blew such a blast upon it that it burst asunder. And straightway all the horns in the host were lifted up in music, and the blowing of the horns of Rohan in that hour was like a storm upon the plain, and a thunder in the mountains. Ride now, ride to Gondor! Suddenly the king cried to Snowmane, and the horse sprang away. Behind him his banner blew in the wind, white horse upon a field of green, but he outpaced it. After him thundered the knights of his house, but he was ever before them. Elmer rode there, the white horse tail on his helm, floating his speed. On the front of the first Aelred roared like a breaker foaming to the shore, but Theoden could not be overtaken. Fey he seemed, or the battle fury of his fathers ran like new fire in his veins. And he was born upon Snowmane like a god of old, even as Orome the Great in the battle of the Valar when the world was young.
Comparing him to a Valar, especially Orome, the hunter, is really telling, by the way.
His golden shield was uncovered, and lo, it shone like an image of the sun, and the grass flamed into green above the white feet of his steed. For morning came morning, and a wind from the sea, and darkness was removed, and the hosts of Mordor wailed, and the terror overtook them, and they fled and died, and the hoofs of wrath rode over them. And then all the host of Rohan burst into song, and they sang as they slew, for the joy of battle was on them, and the sound of their singing that was fair and terrible came even to the city.
Yeah, so that's fucking awesome. I mean, it's one thing to like read it, but it's another thing to. So when I saw those movies as a young man, I mean, obviously they took certain creative liberties, but I mean, what an accomplishment those movies were. Let's see here. Wes says, I'm behind and I'm at the point about losing the shield. And yeah, my players would never let that fly. That's interesting. My players would never let this fly. What does that mean? They built their characters to do a thing, and me just arbitrarily taking that away would never go. I mean, I guess they could leave your campaign. I don't know why people play with these people. It really actually amazes me and shocks me. My players would never let that fly. Like, what does that mean? Like they would do what? I don't understand. Like, what are they going to do? You know, take their dice and go home? I mean, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's crazy to me. Roll for combat says grow a pair. Yeah, right. And yeah, which is fine, which is their right. And then and then that happens once, and then they don't get invited back ever again. Problem solved. But even outside of that, I could understand maybe being pissy about that in 5th edition D&D, or if we were playing some sort of really super hardcore, like super tactical game, I could understand that. But that's not what this game is. I mean, the players had the rule book. I assume they read the rule book. I assume they're aware of how this game works and how this game functions. I don't even know that we have to discuss it in session 0. They just need to read the rules. If they read the rules, then they would know that we're, so I don't know. Like imagine we're playing 5th edition D&D and someone read the rules, and then I was like, "Oh, you're blinded." And, from the darkness cloud, and the player goes, "Okay." And I go, "You have disadvantage to your attack." And they go, That's bullshit. And I go, "Why is that bullshit? It's in the rules." And they go, "Yeah, well, I never read that." Well, did you read the rules? No, I didn't read the rules, but that's bullshit. And I'm like, "But it's the rules though." You're like, "No, I'm not allowing myself to attack with disadvantage." And I'd be like, what is going on right now? Like, what is happening? What is happening right now? I go, "You're obviously very clearly upset. I think you should probably leave." I am a very lucky man. Well, we do need rules to play a game. That's what I'm saying. We're playing by the rules of this game. I don't know what the problem is. So I mean, if you don't want to play Daggerheart, that's fine. I understand that. But then why did you agree to play Daggerheart? I don't know. I maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but yeah. Sure. I can respect that there are people who play D&D because they really should just be playing Diablo 4. But I often wonder why people who should be playing Diablo 4 aren't just playing Diablo 4. That's the only thing I can't figure out. I get that there are people who want to play Diablo 4. I just don't understand why they don't go play Diablo 4. That's the part that I don't understand. That's the part that always confuses me. That's the part that is lost upon me. And I've been playing this hobby for 30 years, and I honestly don't have an answer to it. So, yeah. They want a pure power fantasy without challenge. It's very strange. It's very strange. Oh, Kendall, it is absolutely a different type of game. I mean, Fantasy 20 also doesn't have hope points and fear points, and you don't roll 2d12 and determine if you rolled with hope or if you rolled with fear. I mean, it's like, I don't know. It'd be like playing checkers and then wondering why you can't sink your opponent's battleship. Like we're playing a different game, and you're like, you know, you're playing Battleship and you're like, king me, you know, and you're like, wait, what? And you're like, yeah, king me. I got my misses to the other side of the board. And you're like, no, that's not how this game works. I don't know what to tell you. Did you not read the rules? When we sat down to play, did you think we were playing checkers? Because it was very clearly not checkers. It was very clearly Battleship. So you're like, well, they're both board games. They're both by Milton Bradley. So obviously they're all exactly the same. And I'm like, well, no, they're different board games. They have different rules. Yes, they both are 2 players. Yes, you have your pieces, I have my pieces. So there are some similarities, but just because they're both board games and just because they're both from Milton Bradley or Parker Brothers or whoever makes them, does not mean that they're the same game and that the rules from one apply for the rules for another. Yeah, I'm just going to say it. I just think most players suck. I think that's really the problem. They're babies. And that's not even like an RPG player thing. I just think the problem with players is that players are people and people suck. One of my favorite quotes is from Clerks, where he says, "This job would be great if it wasn't for the damn customers." Of course, the job wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the damn customers. But it's kind of like the worst part about DMing is players. For sure. Because players are people. But more so than that, for whatever reason, RPGs attract some. No, because you know what? Magic the Gathering attracts some truly horrible people too. But, well, Kendall, I can certainly say that one of the first things that I think disqualifies a large number of people from being a good player right off the bat is you should probably read and know the rules to a reasonable degree. So already 80% of players are terrible, right? Glenn, you joke, but when people were talking about, AI DMs, I said, fuck that. When can I get an AI player? Have I ever seen the Bleem quote about how players want a winding river, but try forging ahead in a straight line? I have not, William. I have not, but yeah, I mean, there's something, a truism, right? Which is that players will optimize the fun out of a game. They say they want one thing, but they really want another thing. I don't know. It's very strange. I've been very fortunate, I will admit. And also I understand, because let me say a couple of things. Number one, I've been very fortunate in my life to have an incredible group of players. People have come, people have gone. We've got new players to come in. People like Bob. Bob was not part of my crew. The first 25 years I played RPGs, I didn't play with Bob, but I started playing with Bob 5 years ago. It's been great. Bob's been a great addition, and I have a lot of fun with him. So for the most part, I've been very, very lucky with the people who I've played with. But I've also had some really great experiences playing with strangers and stuff at cons. Now, truth being told, I don't really play con games anymore with pickup strangers, because I have found that since 2018, maybe. They suck. They're boring. They're uncreative. They're unimaginative. They're whiny. They're bitchy. Very Karen-like. Just all they take. They don't give. They speak. They don't listen. Now I'm making broad statements that are based off of anecdotes, but I go to enough cons and I've played with enough people. Yeah, I think players suck. So, and I don't know what experience they're hoping to get. Now, by the way, remember, I'm not one of those people. I don't even like it when people like deeply role play. I think it's kind of cringe sometimes, if I'm being honest with you. And furthermore, I'm not even that big into immersion. I don't really care if you become your character. I don't care. What do I care? I just want to sit around a table with you and have fun and tell cool stories and funny stories and laugh and high five each other and get pumped and feel the feelings and have the emotions. So what makes someone like Smith such a good player? Well, for starters, Smith knows the rules, so that helps. Number two, Smith's a great GM, so 9 times out of 10, GMs tend to be better players just because they know what it's like to be on the other side of the wall. Smith rolls with the punches. If he's always yes-anding, he doesn't stonewall. If he has things that he wants to do or accomplish, he'll try to do them through the game rather than just complaining about it. He'll say, okay, how do I make this happen? He asks questions instead of demands. He's creative within the boundaries of the rule system. So he understands that he shouldn't be getting free lunches. If he wants something, he's going to have to do something for it, make a check, pay a resource. He understands that there's trade-offs, that we're playing a game. He's a solid, actor. He can, emote with the best of them. I'm emoting right now. So he's good for that. He's a team player. He looks for opportunities to spotlight his friends and allies around the table. He's happy to play second fiddle if it means, giving somebody else, if somebody else is better equipped for a role or for a job. And he definitely doesn't care, or complain if things don't go his way or if he dies. And up until, he started, having kids and a job and, life happening to him, he was always, he never missed a session. He was punctual, reliable. Yeah, all those things. Very, and again, I cannot stress this enough, very creative and understands the genre, understands the tone, but also understands when it's sometimes fun to break those things and, to make a funny statement or make a humorous moment. Because I think that, at the end of the day, that's, again, we're sitting around to have a good time. It's an entertainment hobby. And, I think Smith makes entertaining his fellow players and his GM his, one of, if not his highest priority. Not so much anymore because the type of games that we play, but Smith also is very well known for sort of circling the wagons outside of the game. The game, for a lot of players, and this has become more true with my players nowadays, I will admit, because, they've got kids and wives and stuff. But for a lot of players, the game ends at 10 o'clock on a Friday night. They stop thinking about the game at 10:05, and they don't start thinking about the game until the following Friday at 6:30 p.m. when they go, oh shit, I got to go to the game. Smith, more time in the past, he had email chains and Discord conversations about like, hey guys, for next session, like, what are we thinking? I think we should maybe explore this area. We found that map. We could look into that. He's always try to, Derek, is there anything we could do, like kind of maybe handle some of this stuff offline so that when we get to the session, we can just jump right into it? There's a little note. This is it's not always true, so you can't always true. In my experience, there's two type of players. There's players that at the end of the session leave their character sheet behind, figuring that the GM will, clean it up and keep it, in a folder until next time when they play. And then there's players who keep their character sheet in their folder that they have for this campaign. 9 times out of 10, if a player is leaving their character sheet behind, they just get up and they go, "Great session, guys," and then they, grab a soda and leave, and they just leave their character sheet behind. They pack up their dice and leave. That is typically a good sign that the player is not as engaged. Whereas when a player keeps their character sheet, when they have, notes and stuff like that, that is almost always a sign that they are more engaged, So, far more than being good at the game, I just want you to be interested in the game. I want you to be engaged. I want you to be enthusiastic about it. I don't need you to be a great role player. Again, I think it's sometimes kind of cringe. I think it's cringe when Critical Role does it, and they're professional voice actors. So God help you if you're not. No, Raj, my way of thinking is 100% universal, and it cannot possibly be any different. There is only one truth, and it is my truth. Submit or die. Yeah, maybe Thaddeus, but also I think that there's a lot of GMs who probably go out of their way to create situations that engage their players, and the players still don't engage. I mean, even if we're playing, a railroaded adventure path, Smith is still going to be like pinging people like, "Hey, we leveled up. What feat were you thinking of taking? What spells do you think you might take? I want to complement that to make sure that our character party is still built really well. We did a great job when we built our characters back in session 0. I want to make sure we keep that synergy going as we level up." I mean, it kind of doesn't, it really doesn't matter what kind of campaign you're running. You could be running the most railroaded adventure path of all time. There's still conversations and decision points to be made. So, again, anecdotal. Just because someone doesn't send notes between sessions doesn't mean they don't care. The absence of the thing does not prove the non-existence of a thing. I'm simply saying those are indications to me, usually, that a person is more engaged or less engaged. That's all. So, and certainly a game like Daggerheart asks for its players to be engaged. If for no other reason than the GM is constantly going to be putting them on the spot and asking them questions and building on the answers and allowing the players to sort of, change and update the sort of situation. Fabula Ultima is the same way. You can spend a Fabula point to declare a narrative truth. And, "Oh, that guard, that's my brother-in-law. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. He's kind of a black sheep of the family because, he joined the Empire after he married my sister and we kind of disowned him. But, I love my sister and I was like really mad about it, but I know him, so he might recognize me in not a good way. So it could cause problems for us." And you're like, why would a player spend their narrative currency to create and introduce a problem for themselves? Because it creates a cool moment and it's a cool thing and it's what would happen in a movie or a JRPG, right? So, yeah. All right, folks. Well, if I'm correct, we probably lost a bunch of our viewers when we, sure enough. We were over 100. It was over 100 and now we're down to 70. But aren't those games predicated on the idea of not planning and rolling with the situations? For the GM, you mean? The players can have things that they want to do. Right? I'm talking about the players, not the GM. Okay, question. What do you think about the MCDM game where they seem to be kind of disengaged on their phones? That seems terrible. I was surprised to see someone like Matt checking his phone a bunch during a game. I think that's absolutely horrible. Again, I mean, it depends on what is socially, it depends on what's socially acceptable behavior for you in general. I like to go to Starbucks to get coffee, and I like sitting there in the cafe and enjoy my coffee. And I will see like a group of friends come in, and they will sit down at a table, adults, not kids, and they'll get their coffees, and they'll sit there at the same table, and they'll all be on their phones. So if that's acceptable behavior to them socially, you know, that's okay. I would feel, if that was me, I'd be like, why did we get together if we're just going to sit here on our phones, you know? Take care, Creeply. Thank you so much. So yeah, there you go. Just, you know, use soft moves. That's the key. You can't win anyway, so you might as well make it cool, right? You can't win, might as well make it cool. I mean, look, I play with people who have kids at home and, you know, worried wives, and, you know, it's not going to work for me to say you can't be on your phone. You know, they're going to pick it up, you know, at some point, you know, and to be fair, you know, sometimes even my players are like, this is, you know, they get a message. Oh no, it's from the wife. And, you know, they pick it up and it's like, look what our daughter just, drew. Okay. This could probably have waited till I got home, but you know, I mean, you know, it is what it is. Like, what am I going to do? Like, be like, you know, now granted, if it became a real problem, I probably would have a conversation with the person, but you know, I am also, you know, old and sodded myself. So, you know, but that means that sometimes the quality of the game isn't as high as it maybe used to be. Look up the video. If Friends was shot now, it is 6 people just sitting around a table looking at their phones for 30 minutes. I believe it. So. That's true, CD. We have, well, you know, I think it's because you know, being a player used to be like an apprenticeship, you know, like you joined a game and you were, you know, you had to, maybe you had to like beg, borrow, or steal to even get invited into the game. So going into the game was a great honor. And, you know, I remember being a kid playing Basic, and I wanted so badly to go to my older cousin. I had a cousin that was about like 11 years older than me. So I was like 9 or something like that when I started playing Basic D&D. And I was like 10, and my cousin was like 20, 21, and he had his AD&D group, you know, first edition. And I was like, so like, oh, come on, man, let me play. And he was like, when you're ready. And I was like, oh man, you know? So like, and then finally one day we were with our mutual uncle, and he said, okay, it's time for you to roll character stats, you know? And I was like, oh man, he's like, but you got to be good enough to join. If you roll bad stats, they probably won't let you in, you know? I was like, oh no, like, you know, it was like I had to bring my A game. And then when I got there, you know, it was like, okay, I'm here to learn at the feet of the master, or the masters. And so there was a community that taught you how to game. Also, I think this is a little different. I could be wrong about this, but I feel like magazines like Dragon Magazine especially had a lot more articles back in the day about, you know, focusing in towards players. And you would think that in the world of YouTube, we would have something very similar with advice, but maybe we don't. I don't know. So creepily, I would hope that that's true. Yeah. I mean, that would be my expectation. Obviously, I'm in a very different situation. You know, I play with Smith and Bob and Tim and Kaz, and they all have some combination of, you know, spouses, children, jobs. And I don't have any of those. So my situation is quite different, you know, than most people, which is fine. All righty. Well, that's going to do it for me. I'm not sure what we're doing tomorrow. I think Bob's going to run Dragon Tide. I don't know. We need to get a Friday game going again. Unfortunately, like I said, you know, Smith is out for the foreseeable future. So our Friday games are basically in permanent hiatus. So I don't know if I'm going to start running a game or if we're just going to play online. I don't know what we're doing. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in, again, surrounded by thousands of dollars of cameras and thousands of dollars of microphones and thousands of dollars of lights, and no pot to piss in. So I'm going to figure that out. In the meantime, please join Knights of Last Call's exclusive Patreon. We'd love to have you. If you want to talk about Daggerheart, you want to talk about other games, maybe you want to join one of our mega games in their last couple of 6 weeks before the seasons start wrapping up. Just get an opportunity to play some Pathfinder 2 or some Dragonbane. Could have a lot of fun. Dragonbane is a beta season, but we're learning a lot, which is great. And alternatively, maybe you want to come run some Daggerheart for us. I'm sure you could get some really cool players. Most of the people at Knights of Last Call Patreon are GMs, so that already kind of, and they know the rules, so you're already clearing the bar. But we'd love to have you. Patreon.com/Knights of Last Call. And of course, thank you to all the incredible people who support this channel with your generous tips, donations, and memberships. So thank you to Anthony. Thank you to Aaron. Thank you to Alternate Game Master. Thank you to Dagger for the gifted subs. Thaddeus, FL4G, and thank you to all the people over on Twitch who resubscribed. Bardic Hospitality, Not a Hag, Act 4W44, Beowulf, Joda, Pathfinder PhD, a bunch of people all resubbed, and we'd love to see it. So, so thank you so much for joining me, and we will see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Good night, everybody. Peace out.